And what's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Wes Mitchell here. It is GC Live. I will be joined shortly by my colleague, my partner in crime, Chris Clark. He is on the phone right now. Imagine that. But he will be in here shortly. Welcome into what I hope is a record-breaking show today. I already see we got some numbers on here. But do us a favor. This will be by far the longest show in Gamecock Central history because we're obviously live right now at 1 o'clock. And at 2 o'clock, we will switch over directly to the feed from new head coach Shane Beamer's introductory press conference as he's introduced by Ray Tanner. Unfortunately, it'll be over Zoom, but that is the way of the world right now in 2020. So Shane Beamer will basically he's already officially the coach, but he will be officially announced as South Carolina's 36th head coach in football history here at the school. And, we'll see what he has to say. Again, I think thanks to you guys and girls that we can break the GC Live record for most people on the show. But in order to do that, we're going to need your help. So if you're watching on YouTube, watching on Facebook, if you're a Twitter person, please do us a favor and share this somewhere. Share it somewhere. Tell a friend, text a friend, do something because I really think we can hit the record today. Y'all actually, as suspected, broke the record for us on the Monday after Will Muschamp was let go. But I think we can go over that number today. We are, of course, here at GC Live, brought to you by our good friends at Affordable Medical Equipment. You can find them at affordablemedicalusa.com, 803-926-1493. They are home of the game day chair. And Chris, if he ever gets off the phone, will be on to tell you later on a little bit about that game day chair. All right. So process complete. Process was finished out on Friday as the word sort of leaked out right after the game. And, I think as we've sort of said from the beginning, I won't say from the beginning, but there was an early point in this process where it shifted towards Shane Beamer. And I don't know exactly what point that was where it shifted to Shane Beamer, but there was a very early point in this process where the word shifted to where it looked like Shane Beamer was probably going to be South Carolina's next head football coach. And at that point, it became sort of, we used the terminology, the leader in the clubhouse. At that point, it basically became, can someone else pass Shane Beamer? Can somebody catch the leader? Can somebody show enough to sort of get over this benchmark, I think that you would say, that Beamer has sort of set. And obviously, as the process played out, no one else was able to actually get past that point. Beamer, and they finished out the process. I think y'all, there was this sense of what is South Carolina waiting for if Beamer is the guy? Well, I think with something like this, if you're going to hand the keys to a multi-million-dollar company, which is that's what South Carolina football is, if you're going to do that, then you have to complete the process. You have to essentially interview the people you're going to interview, and you have to give them a chance to see if they can pass that bar, if they can go over the top of that bar. From a timing standpoint, if you look back, you'll remember that it was sort of put out there that South Carolina wanted to have someone in place by this very week. As a matter of fact, it was sort of put out there that, I think we reported this the day Muschamp was let go or the day after, that essentially they wanted to have a hire in place December 6th or 7th. That was the goal date. So basically, if you look at it from a timing standpoint, this hire played out exactly the time frame that South Carolina wanted it to. Basically, 3 weeks from when Muschamp was let go on November 15th, I believe that was. 3 weeks from then, South Carolina announced the hire exactly to the day, December 6th, after the news leaked out late December 5th that he was going to be the guy. So timing wise, it all makes sense. So let's get into, and again, I'll be joined by Chris here shortly. Let's get into what has happened so far, what day one was about, and what day two will be about, and some of the messaging that I think you will hear from Beamer a little bit later on. Again, if you are joining us, we're on here a little bit earlier, but you won't have to click away. As soon as Beamer takes the podium, actually, it'll probably be Ray Tanner first. As soon as Ray Tanner takes the podium, I will flip this stream over directly to the stream of Beamer being introduced. So you can stay right here, hang tight with us. We will have the press conference live at 2:00. Depending on how long that goes, we'll probably hop back on just to talk a bit about what we heard from Beamer. So day one was yesterday, right? Beamer flies into Columbia, gets introduced to the team at about 3:30. Team meeting, I was told, was not some super long, drawn-out deal. It was about 30 minutes or so. And the message, y'all, was not about X's and O's. It wasn't about scheme. It wasn't about offense or defense. The message to the team was about culture. It was about essentially what does Shane Beamer want the heart of the South Carolina football program to be about. And the message to the team was that the culture of this program needs to be about loving to play for the University of South Carolina. And I think, y'all, that so when Shane Beamer's when his name first came out, there was a little bit of pushback from a portion of the fan base. And I get it. I think if you're going to hire somebody who's not been a head coach before, people are going to have a response to that. And, we did it was very interesting. We did our initial polling with some names on there that were being thrown out. And Beamer was was well behind the three other guys that we put on our poll. As the process played out, as we got a better and better feel for what a Beamer coaching staff, or a Beamer plan, I should say, more generally, would look like, more of the fan base started to get on board with this hire. Well, by the time it sort of got towards the end, I would guess there was probably maybe 75% of South Carolina fans, maybe a little bit more even, that were behind this hire, that had sort of gotten on board this idea. Well, I think what I've seen from the reaction of fans since the hire is that number has continued to steadily climb. And I think the reason for that is that in these photos that South Carolina has put out, in these little videos that South Carolina has put out, more people are starting to get it in a sense of what South Carolina saw in Shane Beamer. And I think what South Carolina sees in Shane Beamer is not just that he is a guy who wanted an SEC job. Every coach wants an SEC job. That's like, other than the NFL, that's the gold standard of being a head football coach. If you get an SEC job, you are one of the best at what you do in your business. So this wasn't an SEC job to Shane Beamer like it would be to anybody else. This is the South Carolina job for a guy who was born in the state, who spent time here, whose kids were born here, and who has family living in Greenville already. So I think when South Carolina puts out that photo of a Beamer in the plane flying by Williams-Brice, taking a picture of it, just like any fan on this stream right now probably would if they were flying over Williams-Brice. when they get this little video of Beamer walking across the field, getting choked up, getting emotional about, his looking back at his daughter, looking for Easter eggs on that very field, maybe 10 years ago. I think people start to say, okay, this guy's one of us. And I know there's cynics right now. There are cynical people saying that does not win football games. And that's perfectly fine. That's a perfectly fine opinion to have. I'm not going to sit here and say that we'll win football games. Nobody knows what will happen. But I do think, y'all, that there is a distinct feeling right now that you're going to see that's already permeating the fan base. You're going to see it even more at 2:00 today when Beamer speaks for the first time. I think you're going to say, this guy is one of us. This guy is a Gamecock. And there's more than one way to do things. There's more than one way to build a football program. There's more than one way to build the foundation of what you want your program to be, right? Well, let's go back. And I'm not saying in theory that Will Muschamp's way could have never worked, because we've seen it with Nick Saban. If you can get the right people in, that approach that we saw for 5 years can work. But that approach is much more of an NFL. It is much more of a business-like. It is much more of a almost clinical like process to trying to win football games. It's about getting guys in and selling them on going to the NFL, going to the next level, and on just doing things this exact way, because this is how we've always done it. The process, as Nick Saban would say. I think based on what we know about Shane Beamer, based on what we know about the 5-hour plus interview that Shane Beamer had with South Carolina administration when he first interviewed for the job, and based on Shane Beamer's message to the team on Sunday afternoon, the approach is going to be completely different. It's going to be more about love for the school. It's going to be about maybe a little bit more positivity, about pushing the positives, and about building a culture where people want to be here, which gets me to my next point. And y'all, if you have questions, I've probably missed them. I haven't been able to keep up while I've been doing this little dialogue. But I think the most important point from what I've just said is that if you're going to preach culture, if you're going to preach team first, if you're going to preach that you have your players' backs, then you can't just preach that. And I know some people, as I bring Chris Clark in here now, I know some people have questioned. It did not take long. Some people have questioned the decision for Shane Beamer to finish out his time at Oklahoma while also getting started at South Carolina. That is their prerogative. That's part of being a college football coach. Everybody's going to second guess you. But if you're going to preach culture, you're going to preach team first, you're going to preach family first. And part of his very message to the new players that he's inheriting, the ones that sat there and watched him talk on Sunday with no idea probably about the man who now controls their football future, he said, this is going to be about culture. It's going to be about family first here. It's going to be about being positive. He said, I still owe it to my guys at Oklahoma to finish out my commitment to them, to finish out what I probably promised to them sitting in their living room when I recruited them. And honestly, probably a very similar message to what he's about to deliver to the guys he just inherited. So it's very easy for coaches, Chris, to coach speak and talk about culture and talk about team first. And then it's very simple for them to just get the heck out of town the second they get a big pay raise. So I, for one, respect that the actions match the message from Shane Beamer. And I also believe what this first decision is Shane Beamer. It's on par with Shane. Like it's basically on message. It's what you would expect when you hire a Shane Beamer. Additionally, Chris, if the cynics want to say, well, you got to get to recruiting or you need to be around your current team. Well, actually, the current team, most of the guys this week are going to be back home for R&R, getting a reset, seeing their family a little bit, and recruiting is going to be done in an office anyway. So there's no going on the road like there once was. You can sit on Zoom sitting in Oklahoma, just like you could sit on Zoom at the Long Football Ops building here in Columbia. So I believe the advantages to practicing what you preach far outweigh the disadvantages of just not being in Columbia. So that's my take on what is essentially the first decision that has had two reactions, one or the other, of the now very short Shane Beamer. We're not even at 24 hours yet officially as far as when that email went out, I don't think. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't take long if you're an SEC head coach before someone will disagree with you. But that's my take on that, man. And I've been talking for 18 minutes straight now, so I got to bring you in. Yeah. What's up?
So sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Glad you could hold it down, but good thoughts. And I thought, so I'll start with two things to piggyback off your point there. And that is, one, any coach that was on the board that South Carolina hired was going to have an issue with not starting immediately, some later than others, right? And so I think some people thought, and maybe at one point there was something behind it, that because Beamer is not a head coach, that he would just leave Oklahoma and could start immediately, and that would have been fine too. But this is how, he's chosen to handle it. It is better that he's not a head coach because he has less to juggle now at Oklahoma, right? He doesn't have as many responsibilities on that front. So really all he's doing, you could almost equate it if South Carolina was still playing the season right now, maybe he's still running practice and all those different things. Really at Oklahoma, he's running practice, he's doing meetings to finish out the season. Everything else is South Carolina. It's sort of like somebody put it to me yesterday. He's full-time with South Carolina other than, doing those things. And so I know there's only 24 hours in a day. I'm sure Shane Beamer is not sleeping a lot anyway lately. And that probably is certainly the case now. But so here's the other thing I agree with you on, just in terms of the messaging and what you're trying to send. I've seen a lot of people say, well, Will Muschamp talked about culture too, or Will Muschamp talked about putting together a great staff too. Everybody talks about those things, any coach. So we can't say, well, that coach from this school or that school or Will Muschamp or whoever it may be said that, and then they didn't end up doing it. What matters is, I love the way you put it in your Carolina Confidential on Gamecock Central today, Wes. Actions are superior to words, basically. They speak louder than words, and that's what really counts. So what's your tangible – you can sit there and talk about a culture. You could talk about a staff and say my staff's great, or I'm going to put together a great staff, but what is the proof in the pudding on those things? You have a great staff if you're doing a great job developing your players, if you're winning games at the end of the day, no matter if it's some big name guy or if it's some guy that nobody's ever heard of, or a combination of all those. You've got a great culture if you've got a bunch of guys who are bought in and really engaged and love to play for not only the coach, but for the university and for each other as well as themselves. That's when you have a great culture, when things are truly a family feel and you're not just talking about it as a recruiting pitch. And I'm not applying that to anybody in particular. I'm just saying that to create that kind of culture, you got to have those things. And so for Shane Beamer, this is a way for him to show that level of commitment. Here's how I was committed to my guys here. Here's how I'm going to be committed to you once I'm here in the building all the time and I can be full bore, full go. But make no mistake, he's still doing, the vast majority of how he's spending his time is going to be on South Carolina, putting together staff. He's been very active in that from what I understand, and getting started on recruiting.
So, and we had a comment here from Dre on Facebook. who said, he said, Wes, if your girl tells you she's going to marry you, but let me go see my boyfriend a couple more times first. See that's not a great analogy. The better analogy is you put in a 2-week notice to your current job. And I get it. Coaching is different than, most any other job. We're talking about millions of dollars changing hands. I get that. And it's become accepted. It would have been completely accepted, honestly, if Beamer had just said, no, I'm going to start right away. It would have been accepted. It would have been fine. Nobody would have said that's a terrible move. But hey, if you're going to do things, if you're going to run a program, then you have to be yourself. Shane Beamer has got to be himself. He can't try to be Will Muschamp. He can't try to be Steve Spurrier. He can't try to be Frank Beamer. He can't try to be Dabo Swinney, who everybody has sort of compared this idea of hiring a CEO-style coach to. Shane Beamer has got to be himself and then be able to look back and live with how he handled the decisions he made. So here's the thing. I can understand if you maybe disagree with the logistics of it. That's your right. I have a hard time with anybody getting upset at the guy for making this decision. Me personally, I don't see the reason. I don't see a reason to get mad at him for saying I feel strongly enough about this to follow through with my current guys. And coaches, it's not a cookie cutter thing. Like coaches will make different decisions. You don't want the guy that's just going to make the same decision anybody else is going to make. He has to be himself. He has to make his decisions and make the decisions he can live with. So disagree with it. Yeah, that's cool. But to just, there's already been some people pissed about it.
Yeah.
I don't get that aspect.
Good word. So here's a very important pressing question about the Shane Beamer era, because you mentioned the word earlier and we have to get a clarification. Will this be a program or a program under Shane Beamer? Because I think earlier you said program. I think, let's go ahead and take the odds. The people can also speak. I believe Shane Beamer will classify it as a program. Is that what you think?
I agree. Yeah,
that's going to go to combo. Right.
Well, some coaches just will go back and forth from program to program.
Yeah.
I don't know. I will say program.
I agree. Gamecock Russ says program. I totally agree. And obviously all success in the future will hinge on how he classifies that.
And I think, again, there's multiple ways to build a program. But any way that you can sort of differentiate things, just because things didn't work out with the previous group, anything that can sort of get away from this idea of like an organization, because a lot of the terminology people heard for 5 years sounded like an NFL organization, basically, by design. I think the more you can get towards having fun while also working hard, about finding guys that want to be at South Carolina, guys that love the game. I even think in this state, man, I think if you're gonna miss, and what I say, but when I say miss, I mean if you're gonna take a chance on a guy that you're uncertain about, you should always miss with speed. First of all, if you're uncertain, but the guy's just fast as he can be, like a certain Dutch Fork wide receiver, maybe, you take him. But also, if you're gonna miss with guys that love the game. Miss with guys that want to be here. Take a chance on an in-state guy if he wants to be here. But that's probably, we're probably getting off topic here. But the greater point of that is what I'm getting at is basically There just needs to be a different feel within the program. Much like when we talked about how, when South Carolina got rid of their strength coach last year, it was like sometimes you just need a different voice, a different message. And I think that's what South Carolina needs at this point. And I think that's what Shane Beamer will be. Now, again, the cynical side of this, which I'm sure some people share, is going to be, is he going to have to surround himself with great coaches? And does any first-year coach need some guys around him who have maybe been through the fires a little bit? Absolutely. I think that's completely safe to say. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Shane Beamer is going to win, a national championship. Nobody knows that. Nobody can predict that. Every coaching hire, there's risk. But I do think the early messaging has been, especially to the team, from what we gathered on that, has been spot on.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about where things are. Like, as obviously Beamer is in day 2, I guess you could call it, of what he's doing at South Carolina. We know that he's met with staff members yesterday. He's meeting with more staff members, more like support staffers today, before he does go back to Oklahoma. And obviously we have the press conference coming up in about 30 minutes. And so a lot of different things going on there. If you're not a member of GamecockCentral.com, shameless plug, which we're allowed to do because this is our show. We have up some pieces that you may be interested in. We have a piece behind the scenes of the first team meeting, gives you some stuff that was said at the team meeting, some stuff that Shane Beamer talked about. Wes has his Carolina Confidential up, which has some stuff about recruiting strategy, some of the stuff that he was talking about earlier in terms of culture and Beamer going back to Oklahoma, he fleshes out. And also an insider report that I published earlier this morning that has some very early recruiting returns. There's a tight end in Georgia that Shane Beamer has already communicated with, that grew up a Gamecock fan that he knows from his Oklahoma days, and just a lot of other sort of behind the scenes stuff. So check that out. Free trial GC Pod. If you want to jump in with 30 days free, put that in the promo code box when you go to subscribe, get access to all our content. Love to have you, and love all of you that have already come on. So what we know, Wes, from a staff standpoint, right, is Travaris Robinson and Kyle Krantz will not return on Beamer's staff. Other than that, I guess the best way to classify it is, things are still in limbo with a bunch of the other guys, whether on offense or defense. And I think there's probably multiple reasons for that. One of them is that there's still staff moves left to shake out, right? We know that, he has a decision to make on offensive coordinator. And then from there, some things could fall into place from a position coach standpoint. And same thing with defensive coordinators, very obviously going outside and making his own hire for defensive coordinator. And so, you got to wait and do that. And we know that he's talked to candidates. We know that there's some candidates on the board. And then from there, it'll just be about getting that staff put together. Don't know that we have a great timeline. Some of the candidates are still coaching right now. And so we may have to wait a little while on that. And of course, I'm sure Beamer may address some more of the timeline at the press conference today.
Sorry, y'all. I'm cramming my lunch right now while Chris is talking.
I had a front row view of that. That was entertaining.
Lance says he's about to sign up. All right, so we're at our record. So thank y'all. Combined, I think we're over 500 on YouTube. Just so y'all know, combined. Oh God, we're way over 500 on YouTube. Periscope generally is the lowest. YouTube is generally the highest. Facebook is in between. Combined watchers, counting all of you right now, we're at 945. So let's get 1,000. We'll hit 1,000 during the press conference because people are way more interested in hearing Shane talk than me and Chris. But let me say this. For those of you who are newbies, YouTube is the way to go because that's the best way to chat with the degenerates. The whole crew is here. Most of the guys are on. Just a programming note. Normally, if this is your first time joining us, I know we got new people. Normally, we're on at about 2:00 in the afternoon. Now, sometimes we're a little bit late and people yell at us. Sometimes we have to change it. But for the most part, we're on at 2:00. So, John says there's only 65 likes on YouTube. That's okay. Hit the like button, hit the unlike button, just hit something. And if you're new on YouTube, hit the little subscribe button so that you will find out next time that we're on. And then you can join our little family here, because basically what this show is about is just us hanging out and talking some ball. I have literally, do you have any notes for the show, Chris, today?
What kind of notes are we?
Like, did you take notes for the show? I'm saying, like, did you plan anything for the show?
Wes, that would be the first time I would have ever done that.
That's what I'm trying to say. This is not
honesty hour. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's just all of us sitting around, hanging out, talking some ball, and we do it, especially during the season. We do it every weekday. So this is what the show is. We let you drive it. You can put your questions in the little chat, and then we sit here and talk ball. So would love to have our new people join us for later shows. Would love to have you on Gamecock Central. Code GCPod will get you a 30-day free trial. Code Gamecocks will get you 50% off of the first year on the show. Sorry, my brain is like going so slow today.
I'm right there with you, man.
Tyler says Ryan Helinski takes notes. Yes, I did notice Ryan Helinski front of the team at the team meeting, taking some detailed notes about what Beamer had to say. To answer a question on here, and if you're just joining us, we will be flipping over. You won't have to go, whatever, if you're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, as soon as the Beamer presser goes live, we'll be flipping over directly to it. We'll be covering it right here on the show. And I'm praying that it works, because we've never done that before. But I think we're good. Okay, Chris. So yesterday, day one, hit the ground running, talked to staff, talked to the current team. Again, as I said earlier, really a situation where the players are pretty much going to probably for the most part, get back home, reset a little bit. They're not going to be hanging around in Columbia a ton. But today, from what I was told, was more about sort of, like you said, they'll continue to talk with staff, but sort of getting an approach on what recruiting is going to be going forward, because I'm sure Beamer had a decent idea, I would imagine, about the roster and what he was walking into and what the recruiting needs are going to be. But I think today is more about sort of figuring out what you're going to do going forward, because you're at the point now he's got to start calling or Zooming guys who, A, are already committed, making sure they're cool, introducing himself, probably call some coaches, some high school coaches, introduce himself, touch base, and then you have to start to figure out who are the guys that are signing December 16th that are uncommitted, and that maybe you feel like you have a shot, because that's going to be an important part about it, Chris. I think it's going to be picking that there's limited time. So picking the right guys to try and make that final push, because it does no good to make a push for 10 days for a guy that you have no shot at. So you got to be very careful about who you identify during this final stretch.
Yeah, and the interesting thing in terms of the dynamics of this is it's sort of hard to juggle all these factors with recruiting being virtual, because on one hand, it's a little bit helpful, because when you think about, you always hear this notion of, well, you don't maybe want to bring a kid in if it's just a waste of time. Like you said, Wes, if you don't have a shot with them. Well, now things are virtual. So it's not as much of a resource or even a time commitment to do that, but you still there's a lot to do. You got to try to find some guys maybe before the early signing period. You got to assess your current class, your current commitments. Maybe you try to get some of the ones back that just did decommit after Will Muschamp left. And then you have to start laying the groundwork for February for the late signing period. Big question this year. will everything that's happened affect how many guys sign early? It could. We don't know that for sure. We'll know in, several days, in about a week or so, a little over a week, December 16th, start of the early signing period. But the other part of it is it's difficult for these players and these coaches to juggle it, particularly in transition periods, because sometimes maybe with some new guys that are on the board, or for Beamer walking in, some guys that have been on South Carolina's board, he has to get a comfort level for those guys as players and as people. And he's got to lean on some people maybe that were already in the building, or maybe he's got to lean on some prior relationships that he's had with kids where there's some carryover, between Oklahoma and South Carolina, if there are some of those guys. And there are a few, whether in the 21 or 22 class, but 21 obviously is going to be a big focus. Then you have to balance, how many spots, how many guys do you want to definitely sign? We know that this will be a little bit more of a frantic signing period for South Carolina, because he's got very short time right before the early signing period, no visits, anything like that, everything virtual. He's got a very short time before that, and then he's got up until February as well with the late signing period. So it's going to be sort of frantic. So you have to balance the number of kids you're taking from this class against, hey, how many spots do we want to hold for the portal? Because certainly at least some of your strategy for South Carolina, for Shane Beamer, is going to have to be which guys can we find in the portal to come and help at certain spots. You look at receiver, for instance, maybe DB, maybe linebacker, maybe a pass rusher. Those are spots that you're going to have to look for. And the portal is sort of like recruiting as well. You're banking on being able to find somebody in there. So it's a really delicate and a really, honestly, a difficult balancing act in just trying to figure out, how you're going to handle all that stuff. And it's going to be a pretty frantic process.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be fun to watch, I think, because there'll be plenty to talk about. And by the way, congrats to everybody here, because we just hit 1,000 current viewers, or concurrent viewers, I believe they're called, all at the same time, basically, not total viewers. 1,000 current viewers if you add up Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube. So we appreciate that. Record-breaking day. Y'all are awesome. Chris, I know that they can read about this on Gamecock Central, a little behind the scenes at some point on the coaching hire, but you want to give them a little taste. And by the way, we're about 20 minutes away from the intro presser. You want to give them a little taste of how this thing played out and the major players in the end. And, I think sometimes leader in the clubhouse sort of gets it's almost like a misnomer. Sometimes it gets used in situations. But in this case, leader in the clubhouse, I think looking back was like the perfect way to describe the situation, because Beamer was in the lead, had sort of already done what he needed to do pretty much. And it was like somebody else had to come along and surpass him. Yeah. And as far as the South Carolina administration goes and what they were looking for, obviously, in a coach, it seemed like the bar was pretty high there. So give us your take on sort of how the process played out and what you saw just sort of following this thing for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, like you said, man, I've been working. I'm trying to get it out eventually. We'll have a much more in-depth recap on the website, sort of behind the scenes of the search, but in general terms, to give some of it, obviously the Texas A&M game changed the equation this season. Coming in, the thought that was that Will Muschamp would generally be safe for a variety of factors. We don't need to relitigate that, but it changed things. The Texas A&M, the LSU games, losing those two games in the fashion that South Carolina did changed it. And that put the wheels in motion at that point. And so by the time Will Muschamp was dismissed on that Sunday night after the Ole Miss game, it was already apparent the direction that things were going. We knew that the search would be underway well before that Sunday. And obviously some background legwork had begun to be done at that point. And so that Sunday night that Will Muschamp was dismissed, we put out our first coaching update. And one reason that we could do that is because, like I said, the wheels are in motion. There are already things happening. And so, I think there were a couple names right at the beginning that people were going to bring up because they made sense. One was Billy Napier, right? Because we knew just from last year, even when he came up for some other jobs, this was a job that he had eyes on. And Hugh Freeze was another, because we knew that some people around the program, around the university, were going to be interested in taking a look at him. And obviously he's a guy that's a hot name that we knew wanted to get back to the SEC. And there were going to be a bunch of others. And Shane Beamer was one of those that maybe if he didn't come up at the beginning a whole lot, it did not take long. And from there, he steadily rose. It was like every day, as more information on all candidates continued to be gathered, Shane Beamer continued to rise throughout the process. And Wes, I even think, Shane Beamer had his interview, I think, the Friday. So it was about, a week before the search wrapped, because the search wrapped on, I can't even keep up with the night. Saturday night, was that what it was? Saturday night. So that Friday before the previous week is when he had his interview. I think going into that, Shane Beamer was the leader. We talked about it behind the scenes a lot, and we talked a lot about Shane Beamer's positioning, just where things are at, all the other different dominoes and where it can line up. And that interview went extremely well. And from there, the following week, they had more interviews. Brian Johnson from Florida, Scott Satterfield from Louisville, Billy Napier, of course, from Louisiana. And Beamer, just like you said, man, he got up to that number one spot. He got up to that perch, and really nobody ever knocked him from that perch. And then there were a lot of things behind the scenes, just with, the way certain candidates handled things, and the all the different stuff that was coming out behind the scenes from some of those candidates. But the reality of the situation, from what we gathered, man, was just that Beamer was number one. And it was going to be really tough for anybody to knock him from there, and that never happened.
Yeah, and worth pointing out, man, that nobody turned down South Carolina. As far as you see, every time there's a coaching hire, some guys involved. I mean, we'll say it: Satterfield, Napier. Coaches like to put it out, "Hey, I'm staying," and make a big show of it. Obviously, South Carolina was interested enough to talk to those guys. But I found it very telling, Chris, that neither one of those guys said, I've turned down South Carolina. They were very careful to say, I'm staying where I'm at, and use a little bit of free publicity. Although, if you ask me, it all just sort of backfired on Satterfield. Napier's was maybe handled, I would say, a little bit better as far as the public PR perception of it all.
Yeah.
Satterfield's did not come across very well because of the original statement.
Did you see his press conference today? Some of the
No,
stuff?
I have not seen that.
Oh, it was not very good.
Bunch of questions.
Some of the stuff he said, he's getting hammered for again. Basically, yeah. I mean, it has not gone very well. He's put himself in a tough. He's in a tough position now, to be honest. But
I don't want us to get too far off topic.
Yeah.
But dude, Satterfield, the guy's a ball coach. Like, he is a great coach by all indications. You give him some players, X's and O's wise. I've heard nothing but good things about the guy. But he already has sort of struggled, I would say, recruiting at the level needed in the ACC. This just walks him back even more.
Yeah.
That's going to be tough to overcome.
It's going to be really tough. Yeah. No,
and if the timing was different, we may have been talking about Scott Satterfield as being South Carolina's head coach if this was like last year, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously now the timing was completely off, and he was interested in this job. I think he made it obvious he was, and then it all has blown up in his face, and he has not been able to stop this. It's like a snowball that is rolling and building, and he keeps putting his foot in his mouth. So, yes, Zach, we will be streaming the presser right here. Let's see, we're about 13 minutes away from kickoff of the Shane Beamer era. Let's see, Chris. I think let's talk about the upcoming sort of staff hires, but in the context of you're going to see a lot of stuff floating around social media. You're going to see a lot of names thrown out there. I do believe that there's probably some movement that's starting to take place, maybe behind the scenes as far as this goes. But also, I wouldn't believe everything you see on Facebook or Twitter or any of that stuff right now, because it's already been crazy, all the different stuff that's sort of been thrown out there as far as names to watch.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of times some of the names that get thrown out are just guys that people are interested in, right? And that's fine. I mean, that's part of the fun, right? Discussion, who would work here, who would not. Just like with head coach. I mean, we saw it during the head coach search, people throwing out opinions. And so that'll even happen with assistants. And of course, just like with head coaching searches, and there's even more spots. Obviously, there's 10 assistant spots. There's a lot of names that are going to be thrown out because guys are trying to be interested, get their name in for the job. So I think Beamer has some guys are understanding that he's already spoken with. Every coach is going to go into the possibility of getting a head coaching job with, I guess we've been classifying it as like a 2 deep or a 3 deep, sort of your roster of coaches that you have, that you like, that you're interested in, and ideally some guys that you think you can get. And that comes up during the interview process. It weighs into it pretty heavily of what a staff could look like. And you go from there and trying to build that staff. And then, obviously the timing on it, which hopefully Beamer will discuss that a little bit in his press conference. The timing of it is going to be such to where some guys are still going to be coaching. And so it might take a little bit of time for some of that information to get out there eventually.
And man, I think generally it's not going to be one of those things, dude, where it's like, hey, here are the 10 coaches. Generally, every individual coach is on their own timeline. They're in a situation where they're finishing up at different times. Maybe some of them, their season is over. Maybe some of them, their season ends this week. Maybe some of them are in a conference championship. And I'm not giving – that's not me giving like wink, wink. We know who these guys are and put the pieces together. I'm saying in general, maybe there's an NFL guy or two that you have to wait till the NFL season is over. So it's really a situation where I imagine it being like sort of a step-by-step. You're going to it's going to come off probably random. Like this guy's coming on board. This guy's coming on board. But then you kind of it's kind of fun because you can start to put the pieces together because these guys are connected, a lot of them, coaching fraternity. And generally your defense coordinator and your offensive coordinator have some guys they want to bring. So sometimes you can even tell if you're hearing about this assistant, but it's maybe connected to this coordinator, that can sort of put you on the right track, I think. So it's kind of fun. There'll be plenty, free plug again, there'll be plenty to read about and talk about here on the show, but there'll be plenty to read about on Gamecock Central because it doesn't stop now that Beamer has gotten hired. You're muted, Chris. What a rookie. What a rookie.
Got me. You know what? I'll give myself a pass on that one. That's a bad move, but I'm tired. So I'll give myself a pass. I don't even care if nobody else gives me one. Here's the component I've been thinking about. We knew, we knew we were going to have coaching search, which was actually pretty straightforward, which I'm thankful for, given the last one was.
It was not dramatic.
It was not dramatic. There was a lot of stuff to still sort through, but it was not dramatic at all. It was handled pretty well, and it was pretty straightforward. But we knew we'd have that. We knew next piece would be assistant coaches, but the one that I've had on my mind a lot is recruiting, because honestly, and I've joked about this with you, I've sort of said we haven't covered recruiting in several months, but really we haven't. I mean, like kind of here and there a little bit, but it is completely different since the spring than what we're ever accustomed to. Normally a great chunk of the time that you and I spend doing this job is related to recruiting. It's covering announcements, it's talking to kids, talking to other sources about different recruits. It's going and covering camp for 10 days in the summer, maybe some private camps in the spring and summer, tracking visits, during the season on Saturday nights, Sundays afterwards. There's been none of that. And so that's about to change. We're not going to have the in-person visits, but there's going to be a lot more recruiting activity, especially with 2 signing days coming up in December and then in February.
So one other little cool note, Chris, that I think I want to hit before we get to the presser in about 8 minutes. I got a text about this, and it was one of those things I wish I had just put it out because it would have been a cool note to get some retweets about. But now I see they've tweeted about it as well. The USC Letterman, which is sort of a little, I guess it's an official club. They have a Twitter account, but I had gotten a text that some of the guys were going down just to meet Shane before the press conference, and they tweeted about it, put up a picture. I see you posted it on our forum there, but I think that's just another example of sort of I think what we're going to see is this attempt to bridge the past, excuse me, with the current, and trying to sort of build a situation where people want to come back, want to be around the program, and frankly feel invited to be around the program. And I think I don't want to be one of these people that instantly says all the new stuff is great and all the old stuff was handled wrong. I don't want to be that guy, because there were Chris, steps made by Muschamp to try and do this. The alumni flag football game at the spring game. Great idea. Mm-hmm. Loved it. I think if you're Shane Beamer, you're trying to take that even more, a step forward, if you will. So, but I do think that was a nice, and if you want to see it, it's at USC Letterman on Twitter. I'll retweet it on my account as well. But cool gesture, cool moment for Beamer and those guys.
Yeah, it was. And, obviously not a surprise that so many former players and then the Letterman's Association as a group, are saying these things now that Beamer's got here, because they were, a lot of them were saying them before. We know that a lot of the Letterman, maybe not in the context of that actual association, but individually, were reaching out to people and, speaking very kindly of Shane Beamer and sort of standing up for his candidacy. And that was a part of it. What they didn't, the University of South Carolina did not hire Shane Beamer because a lot of former players really liked him or recommended him for the job. That's not why. But was it a part of it? Was it something that he could build into his plan? Sure. And so uniting, former players, uniting the fan base, all those things are sort of part of, what his vision is here at the program now that he's at the helm.
Yeah. Speaking of, we're under 5 minutes until Shane Beamer will be introduced by, I assume, Ray Tanner. Will the Prez be on there too? I wonder. I don't know. I haven't heard. I don't know if you've heard any details.
He is out of protocol now.
Yeah, he's out of the old COVID protocol.
COVID jail. So I think he could make an appearance. My understanding is that there will be some people in the building, some university officials, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term.
Yes, the presser will be live right here on the show. We are now combined, closing in on 1,400 people, combining Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Chris, tell everybody about the game day chair before we forget. You are muted again, my friend.
Goodness gracious. Wow. So let's talk about
like a rookie.
It's big time. We might need to replace me after this show. And I'll come back at a later date. The Game Day Chair, Gamecock Central Live, is brought to you by the Game Day Chair. Give those guys a call at 803-926-1493. Good thing I memorized it because Wes doesn't have it up top right now. Or go to affordablemedicalusa.com. A super comfortable, roomy chair. Great addition to your living room, your man cave, variety of positions, all at the click of a button. Just think of it as a big, super comfortable, and really technologically savvy recliner. And do it while you're wearing your Dead Soxy socks. If you need to go to work, you need some new socks from either a dress sock standpoint or just some no-show socks. They're coming out with a lot of new product all the time. Go to deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY.com. Use the promo code HOLIDAYPRO to get 35% off your entire order at deadsoxy.com. We appreciate those guys being a sponsor here, both of them. And make sure you check them out and support them too.
And by the way, Josh, we have to use the mute button because it helps with feedback, especially because I talk really loud on here. So that's why we use the mute button. Yes, Dead Soxy, go check them out, deadsoxy.com. It was National Sock Day at some point last week. So I wonder if they have a huge jump in sales on Sock Day. I'd imagine that they do. All right, we are getting ever closer to the introductory press conference. South Carolina has just gone live, but I still don't see anybody yet. They just have the little fiery Gamecock thing going. So we're, for lack of a better way to say it, what do you think? And by the way, man, if you get to talking, I'll just cut you off if I have to get it going. Chris, what do you think Shane Beamer's message is going to be when he addresses Gamecock fans for the first time as head coach in about 2 minutes?
I think he's going to talk a lot about how this is his dream job. That's something that he's reiterated many times, during the interview process and even yesterday, in addressing the team, that this is a dream situation. This is home for him. Grew up in Charleston, 2 kids born in Columbia. Obviously, he's been here for several years and as an assistant under Steve Spurrier in a place that he knows really well and has always thought very highly of, and a place that, frankly, he's not going to be interested in leaving, I don't think at any time. So it's a place that means a lot to him. And he's probably going to talk about pouring everything into the program and probably just how he plans on building it. Culture, family. Family is a word that he used yesterday, during the team meeting. I think those are the types of things that he's gonna preach, during this talk.
Yep, and I think it's interesting, man. You've sort of had a slow building. I talked about this earlier. A slow building of people sort of getting the hire. Like at first when his name first came out, there was a much lower percentage that were like saying that's the guy. Then it sort of got a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. I think, and I said this earlier in the show, Chris, you're starting to see that people are kind of like, okay, this guy's one of us, I think is what the fan base is starting to see. And I think when they see him flying over Williams-Brice and taking a picture of the stadium, which is the same thing any Gamecock fan would do if they were flying over, getting a little bit emotional, thinking about his daughter going out there and doing an Easter egg hunt with Jerry Spurrier and all that on on the field. It's just a different feel to kind of have a guy that feels like, even though he's not a Gamecock graduate, but it feels like there's so many connections here. He was born in Charleston. He has family that lives in Greenville. To see all those things, I think people sort of are getting it. And I would say if it was 75%, yes, we will be going to the presser as soon as it's on. I see people keep asking. For those of you who are new to the show, I'm Wes Mitchell. He is Chris Clark. As soon as it goes live, I know Josh said it's 2:00. I'm looking at the video right now. As soon as it goes live, we will put it on right here on the show. But I don't want y'all to have to stare at this fire Gamecock for the next minute. So I think people are saying, all right, this guy's sort of one of us. I think he's going to hit an absolute Ronald Acuna grand slam in the press conference here in a minute.
With a bat flip and everything?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, it would be hard for him not to, just because a lot of people know they're already familiar with Beamer. Like, he's not unfamiliar to most people who have been following the program for a long time. A lot of people have even heard him talk before. And, obviously with technology nowadays, as opposed to, I don't know, 2000 or whenever it may have been, people are able to find more information just on guys and do more research. And so obviously there's a familiarity level with Shane Beamer, and there's a familiarity level with him in this university too. And I think he's going to be able to.
All right, Chris, here we go. All right, we're going to go right now. Introductory press conference for Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks.
And we'll get to you as soon as we can. Please mute your microphone when you aren't speaking. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the University of South Carolina President, Bob Caslin.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hey, let me tell you how excited I am to be here. Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad that you're here. I could not be more excited for today. Today is not only a day of great excitement, today is a day of great promise. We are so excited to welcome our next football coach, Coach Shane Beamer. We also are really excited to welcome his wife, Emily, his children, Sutton, Olivia, and Hunter. And I know they are going to be here as absolutely as soon as they can. So, Coach, I can't tell you right now how excited we are that you are now part of the Gamecock family once again. First, I would just say that how important that the year and a half that I've been here, that I have seen the importance of athletics to our university. It is so important to our fan base. It's so important to our alumni. It's so important to our students, our staff and faculty. It's really kind of woven into the culture of this entire university. Our fan base could not be more passionate, and they could not be more excited about what it takes to have athletics here on the university and to have a winning program. America loves a winner, and America wants to be around a winner, and they want to win, and they want to win with excellence, and they want to win the right way. And I'm absolutely convinced that as we went through this entire selection process, that Shane Beamer is that coach. Coach Beamer has been mentored by the best. He has a wealth of experience. He knows the Southeast Conference. He knows the state of South Carolina and our neighboring states. He knows the recruiting activities that are going on in the Southeast Conference and in this particular state. And he's got the competence. And most important, I am absolutely convinced he has the character that will bring this program to a championship level. When I talk about and think about Shane's character, the first thing that comes to mind is trust. And I was anxious to hear the great words that he had when he was talking to the team yesterday about trust and how trust is so tremendously important and it has to be earned, and that he wanted the opportunity to earn it. And when you talk about character, you talk about a culture that defines that character and the values that are part of that particular culture. Values of integrity, values of selflessness, laying it on the line for each other, values of excellence, and building that culture that no matter what, I will never want to let this team down. It's pretty clear that we all want a championship program here at the University of South Carolina. And I'll tell you, I am absolutely convinced, and I am more confident than I have ever been, that Coach Shane Beamer is the one that will get us there. So we are excited for today in a very special way. I could not be more excited as the president of the University of South Carolina. Coach Shane Beamer, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. We're not going to bring you up just yet. I want to now bring up a partner that has worked so tirelessly in this effort to bring on Coach Shane Beamer, and that's our incredible athletic director, Ray Tanner. So, Ray, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We're grateful that you could participate. I want to begin by recognizing our president again, President Caslin, for embracing this process that we have gone through. He was with us every step of the way. He never missed an opportunity to visit with a coach that I visited with, and I'm very grateful that he took the time out of a schedule that you can, it's hard to believe the amount of things that he does in a particular day, but so I'm grateful for the time that you spent and the passion that you embraced this search. I'd also like to recognize our Senior Deputy Athletics Director, Chance Miller, who has also been with us every step of the way. He's done a wonderful job. He's an IT expert. He's a lawyer. He's a little bit of everything, but he's been a valuable asset as we've gone through this process. Also, Chad Chatlos. He's a managing director now of Turnkey Search. He was with us as we went through this process. I'm grateful for all the insight and the valuable information that he provided. I only had one rule for Chad when we engaged, is that every time I call, you answer on the first ring. He didn't do that every single time, and I'm going to have to hold that against him as we move forward. But also our board of trustees that supported our chair, Dr. Dorn Smith, that supported our process. They were not directly involved. It was just the people that I had mentioned, but they supported our process as we navigated to the day that we're here right now. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for those people and the amount of time and energy that they expended to get us to today to have an opportunity to introduce Coach Shane Beamer. I tell you, it just seems like yesterday that Coach Beamer was here on campus. It's been 10 years, and he made an impact while he was here as a coach, as a person, as a relational builder from his players, former players. He stayed in touch with many people here in our city and our campus community. He was widely respected. He's been to so many different places and done so many things. And I looked at his resume a little bit, and I asked him, I was looking at his coaching career, and I said, it appears to me that you started coaching just out of college. And he said that is correct. I proceeded to ask him, what happened to your NFL career? He said it was rather short. He said, I tried out, and they asked me, was I serious about trying out? So I thought that was good. But it's always good to get in the coaching ranks so early. He's been to a lot of different places. But I'll tell you this, in 21 seasons, he's participated in 17 bowl games. Out of the time he's been assistant head coach, associate head coach, position coaches, he has been very successful, a part of some programs that have achieved at a very, very high level. He played in a national championship game, and he coached in a national championship game. Of the 21 seasons that I mentioned that he was a coach at all Power 5 schools, that there was only 3 of those teams that had a losing record. So I know that as a person, Coach Caslen has referred to the outstanding characteristics with integrity, with passion, the enthusiasm, with everything that he stands for, what he represents, the affinity that he has for this school. And he's been away for quite a while, but he has a tremendous desire to be here. And it has not just started when I made the phone call to him about becoming a candidate in this search process. It has been evident for a long time. I appreciated his experience and what he's been through, the preparation. For a long time, he's been preparing to become a head coach. You look at his journey and where he's been and what he's done. And now he's assistant head coach at Oklahoma as they enter into a picture of playing for a Big 12 championship and what he's been able to do. I would also note that with 3 coaches that he's been with, when you talk about Kirby Smart, you talk about Lincoln Riley, you talk about Sylvester Croom at Mississippi State. All those 3 coaches were either first or second year coaches. So he knows what it's like to be in a situation where somebody hasn't been a head coach, but they have become one. That came up on a couple of different questions that you have here and there. I'm the least bit concerned. He's prepared for this day to become our head coach and to lead us to heights that we all aspire to be a part of. I know our fan base is excited. I did engage with our former players, the Lettermen. They were tremendously excited. We had a couple of Zoom calls. A number of them showed up here this morning outside the building. This is a COVID-free building, so we couldn't let them in. But Coach Beamer went outside. He went outside to have a visit with them, and I thought that was a tremendous gesture on their part. And I will tell you, as Coach Caslen did, I call him Coach because he's a former a former player, and he coached a little bit in college football. So we're excited to have Sutton and Olivia here with us, as well as Hunter and his wife, Emily. Sutton and Olivia were both born here in Columbia, so they're really coming back. They're really coming back to where their roots are. But for so many reasons, I feel very strongly that we found the man to lead our football program. Last night, as he was visiting with the team and their attentiveness and his remarks, they embraced, they were engaged. And I think they're excited about moving forward with a man that cares deeply about them and about the success that they're going to have an opportunity to enjoy. So without further comment, it gives me tremendous pleasure to introduce the head football coach at the University of South Carolina, Coach Shane Beamer. Thank you. I'm going to wipe you down.
Thank you, Coach Tanner. Thank you, President Caslin. It's an absolute honor to be the head football coach here at the University of South Carolina. Today is an absolute dream come true, not just to be a head football coach in the Southeastern Conference, but to be the head coach at the University of South Carolina. In my dreams, I wasn't staring at a screen of reporters on Zoom, and we had a big room with my family and so many people in here, so that's a little bit different, but it certainly doesn't take away the excitement of being here in this position. I want to thank President Caslin, Ray Tanner, and Chance Miller for their belief and their faith in me. The interview process was very, very thorough, but I really, really enjoyed connecting with those guys. I told my wife the first time that Coach Tanner and Chance and I talked on the phone, I came home and I just told her, I said, there's something different about those guys, their vision, the way that we connected, the amount of time that we spent together on that phone call, the initial phone call, and then the interview was pretty special. And then having a chance to visit with President Caslin during the interview process as well. The fact that he's a huge football guy, played the game of football, is exciting for me. We are certainly aligned here, and it all starts with those guys at the top. I want to thank Coach Will Muschamp and the contributions he made to this program. Certainly a class individual and somebody that I have a lot of respect for that advanced this program and tried to do it for the right reasons. So I want to thank him for what he did for the University of South Carolina as well. To the former players here at Carolina, Coach Tanner mentioned that I had an opportunity to visit with a group of them this morning. I'm so appreciative for those guys coming by, being able to see old faces, guys I coached like Mo Brown, guys that I coached against like Ryan Brewer, Perry Orr, so many former players that came by to take the time to do that this morning was very, very special to me. And I'm thankful for that. I've heard from so many of them the last couple of weeks, and I told my wife when this process was going on that I didn't know how this thing was going to finish. But regardless of what happened, I would have been crushed if this thing didn't happen. But I told her just the amount of former players that I heard from during this time that reached out to me or that I found out reached out to Coach Tanner and our administration to recommend me and jump on the table for me was extremely, extremely humbling. It reaffirmed why I coach. Obviously, Saturdays are important. Wins and losses are what you're judged on, but the opportunity to have an impact on a young man's life and to have a guy like a Marcus Lattimore call me out of the blue and tell me stories of things that I barely remembered that he talked about, conversations we had. A guy like a Connor Shaw driving home from work 2 weeks ago and to have Melvin Ingram and Akeem Auguste FaceTime me just to catch up. Patrick DeMarco, Torrey Gurley, I can go on and on and on. Alshon Jeffrey, Stephon Gilmore. I've heard from so many of them over the last couple of weeks. And thank you. Thank you. This is your program. I'm honored to be your head football coach, but this is your program and you guys laid the groundwork. You are always welcome here. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be here. I've been blessed to be able to work for some great head coaches over my career. I've learned so much from all of them and taken a little bit from all of them as well. Starting with George O'Leary, who gave me an opportunity, my first coaching job back in 2000, right after college when Coach Tanner told you that story. I did. It's a true story. I went to our pro day at Virginia Tech, and I had one pro scout come up to me and say, "You're not serious about this, are you?" And then I had a second one come up to me and said, "What are your plans for next season?" Which obviously coaching or playing pro football wasn't one of them. So I got into coaching pretty quickly. I had an opportunity to work for Coach O'Leary at Georgia Tech. Philip Fulmer hired me and gave me an opportunity to get into the SEC at the University of Tennessee. Sylvester Croom, someone that other than my own family has had more of an impact on me than anyone in this world. A guy that was the first African-American head football coach in the Southeastern Conference and hired me at the age of 26 to come to Starkville, Mississippi and work on his staff for him is something that I'm still trying to repay to him all these years later. Seeing how he handled his program and the way that he built that program at Mississippi State, so thankful for that opportunity. To Steve Spurrier, who gave me an opportunity here in Columbia. If he hadn't hired me back in 2007, probably wouldn't be standing here today. But to be able to come back here with Coach Spurrier and work for him and learn from him and win a lot of football games, thank you, Coach, for that opportunity. To my dad, Frank Beamer, the former head coach at Virginia Tech, it was such a thrill for me. It was hard to leave here, but such a thrill for me to leave South Carolina and go work for my dad at Virginia Tech for 5 years. Thank you for the lessons I learned from you. To Kirby Smart, who hired me at Georgia on his first staff in Athens, a guy that I have immense amount of respect for. I consider a close personal friend and someone that certainly made me a better football coach in my 2 years with him in Athens. And then finally to Lincoln Riley. My family and I loved living in Athens, Georgia. Had a great time. We were winning football games. But when the 10th assistant coach rule came into effect in college football, Lincoln Riley reached out to me. And there's not a program in all of college football that I would have left to go be an assistant coach at other than the University of Oklahoma. And that was because of Lincoln Riley. I felt like I'd done a lot in my career. I had a lot of different roles, but the opportunity to go to learn from Lincoln and learn the offensive system at Oklahoma and how we do things for my family and I to get out of our comfort zone a little bit was an opportunity I didn't feel like I could pass up. And I've grown so much as a coach in the 3 years out there at Oklahoma. Not only have I learned a lot from a football standpoint, I gained a very personal, close personal friend. He and his wife, Caitlin, are phenomenal people. He's been a huge help to me throughout this process, answering questions, willing to work with me throughout this process and helping me learn how to be a head coach by watching him each and every day. And then the president, Joe Harris, the president at the University of Oklahoma, and Joe Castiglione, the athletic director at Oklahoma. Thank you for the time that you've spent with me. I've had multiple lunches with Joe Castiglione where he's allowed me to pick his brain and ask questions. And he's considered one of the finest athletic directors in the country. And to be able to learn from him has been really, really special. I want to thank the Oklahoma players. I wouldn't be here in this position without you guys. I've got 600 plus text messages on my cell phone right now from people congratulating me, wanting to come here and coach, different things. But so many of those text messages are from players at Oklahoma that have reached out to me and are excited for me. And thank you guys. I developed close personal relationships with the players that I coach. And as excited as I am about leaving or about coming to South Carolina, the opportunity, but the having to leave those guys is extremely tough and difficult, but appreciate you guys and all you're about. And then finally, my family, my in-laws, Steve and Sandra Gladney back in Starkville, Mississippi. They are SEC through and through, and the fact that their son-in-law is live on SEC Network is probably the proudest day of their lives, certainly in our marriage, I'm sure. I hear them talk regularly about Paul Feinbaum and the SEC at football and this and that, and two great people, and I'm fortunate that they allowed me to come to Starkville, Mississippi and marry their daughter. To my parents in Blacksburg, Virginia, Frank and Cheryl Beamer, thank you for all you've taught me, the son that you raised me to be, and your constant support. For 21 years in coaching, I can always count on Thursday nights getting a phone call from my parents wishing me luck in that game on Saturday, my dad wanting to know what the game plan is and what we're thinking. And I can count on every single game, regardless of when that game ends, whether it be after midnight or early in the afternoon, within 5 minutes of that game being over, I can always count on a cell phone call from my mom, leaving me a voicemail, either congratulating us on our win or telling us tough loss and get ready to bounce back next week. My sister, Casey, Prater, lives in Charlotte, which I'm excited about getting back closer to her. Thank you for your constant support and being the best sister in the entire world. And then to my family back in Norman. My wife is born and raised in Starkville, Mississippi. And I took a job there in 2004. We got married. And within our first year of marriage, I came to her and I said, we're moving to Columbia, South Carolina. We have this opportunity. So we drove over to Columbia to look around. Coach Spurrier had already offered me the job. Wanted to make sure it was right for all of us. We didn't know anything about Columbia. I drove through here in the summertime, and beyond that, I hadn't spent much time in Columbia. We spent the night, our first night in Columbia, a hotel off Bush River Road. That's all I knew about was a Bush River Road. And at that time, drove around the next day looking for a house. And little did we know that those 4 years would lead to 4 of the greatest years of our life living here, the friendships that we made in our entire life. I one thing my dad taught me in December of 1986, he became the head football coach at Virginia Tech. And he got up in his opening press conference and he thanked so many people, his brothers, his sisters, his parents, former coaches, just like I just did. And he forgot to introduce my mom, his wife. And I've always remembered that as I've been preparing for this day, to make sure that I don't forget to introduce, or in this case, thank my wife. So leaving here 10 years ago was extremely difficult. I told my wife, I'll never forget having this conversation, that if we ever wanted to be the head football coach at Virginia Tech, or excuse me, if I ever wanted to be the head football coach at South Carolina, I felt like we needed to leave to go to Virginia Tech at that time and then ultimately come back. And I don't know if she believed me or not, but she went along, and we've worked for 10 years to get back to this place, this special place. And baby, we did it. We're back. But the dream doesn't end there. We're just getting started. But so thankful that you're my best friend, my partner throughout this. I'm sad you're not here today, but I can't wait to see you back in Norman. And then to my 3 children, Sutton, Olivia, and Hunter. You guys are going to be seeing a lot of them. They're going to be completely invested into this athletics program. We're going to be at every sporting event you can think of. We're going to be supporting Coach Staley, Coach Martin, all the different sports here at Carolina. We're excited about that. I was telling Coach Tanner in my interview process, my son, he's 7, for the last 2 weeks, that he knew about this opportunity. He knew about Carolina. Every single night when I came home, they would text me, "See, are you close to home?" I say, "I'm about 5 minutes away." And lo and behold, every single night when I walked in the house, Sandstorm would be blaring in our kitchen, and my 7-year-old would be waving his T-shirt above his head. So no pressure at all on that one. But it was pretty cool to see when this thing came to fruition late Saturday night. I've still got some old Carolina clothes that I had from my time here. My kids put those on. They're excited about it and can't wait to get them over here. Like I said, we're just getting started. I've had opportunities in my career to be a head football coach, but I've been in some great places along with some great coaches. And I wasn't going to leave just to go check a box to say that I was a head coach. It would have had to have been really, really special. The places that I've worked, the coaches that I've worked for, made that really, really hard to ever leave. But this is a dream job for me because you have everything in place to win here at the University of South Carolina. A state that I was born in, that I'm so proud to be a native of, the state of South Carolina. An amazing elite university here with unbelievable academics and great leadership. A growing state and a growing city that I'm excited about raising our family in, this amazing city of Columbia, South Carolina. The facilities here, so much has changed in the 10 years since I left, but the facilities here are second to none. I've coached at a lot of different places. I've visited a lot of different schools, and the infrastructure that we have here from a facility standpoint, this building, Williams-Brice Stadium, everything that's continuing to grow, it's exciting to have those resources to be able to recruit here. The amazing fan base at the University of South Carolina. One of my earliest memories, my dad was the head coach at Murray State out in Murray, Kentucky, FCS program. He took the head coaching job at Virginia Tech in 1987. And one of my first memories to big-time college football was coming down here to a game at Williams-Brice and seeing Todd Ellis, who I so appreciate being here today, quarterback at the University of South Carolina, seeing Sterling Sharp out there, all the great players that he played against. Obviously, it didn't go well for Virginia Tech, but I just remember being blown away by the fan base, the size of Williams-Brice Stadium, just something about the Williams-Brice Stadium and the electricity in the air in those times down here, and it's always resonated with me. This is a job my dad spent time coaching in Charleston, South Carolina at the Citadel. And one thing that he always talked about during his entire career was how much he would love if the opportunity ever presented itself to be the head football coach at South Carolina himself. I still remember, God bless him, but I still remember Mike McGee coming to Blacksburg, Virginia, and sitting in our kitchen and interviewing my dad at one time about being the head coach at South Carolina. So that opportunity never transpired with him, but the fact that I'm standing here today is really, really cool, and things have certainly come full circle. But I remember those initial games in Williams-Brice Stadium. I've been in here as a coach for Carolina, and I've been in here multiple times in Williams-Brice Stadium as an opposing coach. And the atmosphere, the electricity, the passion of the crowd in Williams-Brice Stadium is second to none. And I am so excited about getting back out there, running out to 2001, listening to Sandstorm and all the different amazing traditions that we have here at Carolina with the greatest fan base in the nation is something that I'm really, really excited about. I'm excited about being a part of a program that has such a high expectation level of success throughout all sports. It's a top 25 athletics program with great leadership, like I talked about, that's won multiple national championships in a lot of different sports, and really looking forward to learning from the other coaches here at this great university and picking their brain on what makes them successful, and then supporting this athletics program with my entire family. You have, when I talk about the resources to be successful, you certainly have that with the high school programs and a recruiting base here in this state. It's always going to start with the state of South Carolina. I understand how important the high school coaches are in this state. The guy, my head high school football coach, Dave Christ at Blacksburg High School in Blacksburg, Virginia, the lessons he taught me as a young teenager in Blacksburg still resonate with me to this day, and the impact that the high school coaches have on players is strong. This isn't me reconnecting with any high school program, wherever I've been, whether since I left Carolina, whether it be Virginia Tech, whether it be Georgia, whether it be Oklahoma. I've always recruited this area, and I've always recruited this region. So it's really cool to have heard from so many high school coaches since this was announced that I'm looking forward to reconnecting with, and if you want to phrase it that way, and getting back in those high schools. This is a program that you're always going to be welcome at. I'm looking forward to visiting with you in your school. And once the age of this era of COVID is hopefully over soon, being able to get you guys in our building and having a chance to visit with you. I know some of you have questions about my time frame. I know it's been reported that I'm going to go back to Oklahoma and finish the season with those guys. And that's very important to me. Like I said, I have deep relationships with those players at Oklahoma, and I want to be loyal to those guys as well. And I don't want to sweep the rug out from under them and leave them high and dry with 2 weeks left in our regular season with another opportunity to win a Big 12 championship. I didn't think that was the right thing to do. I talked to the players on our team yesterday about trust, about communication, about loyalty. And I didn't think it was fair to me to have that conversation with those guys and then leave these guys high and dry out in Oklahoma. So I'm going to do 2 jobs here for a couple more weeks. It's a little bit easier to do in today's time because we're not able to get out on the road recruiting. It's obviously everything is shut down. So everything that we need to do from a recruiting standpoint, I can do from our phone. And that's what I will continue to do and finish out the season with those guys, and then look forward to getting back here as soon as possible here in less than 2 weeks back here into Columbia. And that was very well received by the players on our team yesterday. And when I told them that, I could tell the reaction was positive, and certainly that's what I want to do. So we're going to have a lot of fun building what I want to be the premier culture in all of college football. That starts as investing in the relationships with these players and this current team, and getting out here and continuing to grow this awesome football program. And we're going to do that as it's already started. Haven't slept much here in the last couple of days. This thing was finalized late after midnight, after our game against Kentucky finished on Saturday night, and less than 9 hours later, I was on a plane headed to Columbia. So to all those 600 plus people that have sent me text and called, I apologize that I haven't gotten back to you yet. I promise you I'm going to. I appreciate all of you reaching out. And like I said, I know I don't want to continue to stand up here and ramble. I know so many of you have questions, and just wanted to reiterate and say it one more time. It's an absolute honor to be the head football coach here at the University of South Carolina. To all of the Gamecocks that are listening and watching live, you have my word that we will work every single day to build a program that you are proud of. My last year here at Carolina, we got over to Atlanta and came up a little bit short in that championship game. And I will work tirelessly with my staff that we put together and our team to get back to Atlanta and finish the deal this time. To have a program that you are proud of with the way that we represent your university on and off the field. I have great pride in being from the state of South Carolina, and I have great pride in being the head coach of the University of South Carolina and representing this program, this state, and this university. It's extremely exciting for me. It gives me immense pride to put on a shirt with that Carolina logo. And we're going to have a team that you can be proud of that takes great pride in representing this university and having that Carolina logo on their helmet and on their jersey. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions. I appreciate your time, and thanks for those. Allow me to say those few remarks.
Ben Briner from the state has the first question.
Hey, Coach Beamer, congrats on getting the job. Welcome back to South Carolina. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned a little bit about getting the chance to work with Coach Riley. Philosophically, schematically, what kind of offense and defense are you going to try to build here with the Gamecocks?
Well, it's one thing that I've learned from Lincoln is your system's got to be flexible enough where you can adjust it to the strengths of the players that you have. Our offensive system, for example, at Oklahoma is a little bit different right now, or a lot different than it was this year with Spencer Rattler, our quarterback, than it was last year with Jalen Hurts, and then a little bit different than it was the year before with Kyler Murray. So you've got to have a system that's flexible enough to accentuate the positives and what you have to work with. I've watched Carolina play a lot this year on television. I was kidding with Todd Ellis earlier. For the last 10 years, every Sunday night, my wife and I, we've always recorded the coaches show, and just to keep up with Carolina football and what's going on. And so I got a pretty good idea about the players in this program and what we do well. But at the end of the day, we want to be tough. It starts with toughness, starts with being physical. Offensively, I think you've got to be multiple. You've got to have the ability to run and pass from a system standpoint. You've got to be able to do both. This league is too tough, and we will be able to do both. You got to be explosive. In today's college football, the name of the game is explosive plays. We've got to be able to create those through scheme and through recruiting, and we certainly will. But that's what we want to be offensively, and then defensively, you got to be multiple. Offenses are too good nowadays. The name of the game is scoring points, and I've seen that the last 3 years out in Norman. We'll be about that here at South Carolina for sure. And then from a defensive standpoint, you got to be multiple. You can't line up in the same thing every time and allow teams to attack you that way. You've got to be able to affect the quarterback on defense. And then you've got to be so good fundamentally sound. You've got to be great tacklers. And those are things that I believe in and we won't deviate from.
Mike Barber in Richmond.
Hey, Shane, congratulations.
Good to see some Virginia guys on here.
Yeah, you are obviously not an old man, but it feels like it's been a long wait for you to get this opportunity. Does it feel that way to you? And were you at all frustrated in how long it maybe took?
No, I'm a man of faith, and I know that God has a plan. And my wife and I were talking about it a couple nights ago, that so many opportunities that were presented that I didn't take, some opportunities over the last 20 years that, frankly, I wanted to get that I didn't get. And I'm so thankful that I didn't, because it led me here to this day. And I mentioned it a minute ago, and it's the truth. When I'm working at the University of Georgia, I'm working at the University of Oklahoma, I'm coaching for my dad at Virginia Tech. I'm coaching at some of the premier institutions in this country. And it would, as much as I wanted to be a head coach, I knew the timing had to be right. I was really pleased with the steps that I was taking and the roles that I was in to make that opportunity become a reality. And frustrated, no. Things happen when they're supposed to happen, and I'm very confident in that. And I can say this, Mike, I wouldn't have traded any of the steps that I've been on in my entire career because of, one, it led me back here today, but two, just the way that it's prepared me to be a head coach, the different roles that I've been in, the different experiences that I've had. The experience has been unbelievable. I'm 43 years old, and I've been the son of a head coach my entire life. And so I've seen that firsthand, what it's about. And no, I haven't sat in that chair, but I've seen pretty good way of how to do that.
David Cloninger, Post and Courier.
Hello, Shane. Welcome back.
Thanks, David.
No problem. How will you be organizing your staff? Will you keep any of the assistants that were here last year?
Yeah, we're going through that process right now. I met with every single coach on our staff yesterday. It was important for me to get over here early yesterday morning and have 2 full days to dive into all that. And it starts with the players in this building and the coaches in this building. There's some great coaches on this staff. There's some coaches on this staff that I've worked with either here at Carolina or at different places. It's Coach Muschamp had put together a great staff of men, coaches, and recruiters. And there's certainly some guys on this staff that I would envision being in our program going forward. It's got to be the right fit for them and for us as a program. But I really had some good productive visits on that. I'm going to take my time on that. I've been preparing for this opportunity for a long time, and in the interview process, I feel pretty confident that I've presented a thorough plan for the staff to Coach Tanner and President Caslin and Chance, and we'll see how that transpires. I've coached with over 100 different full-time coaches in my career at 7 different Power 5 schools. That's not counting graduate assistants and analysts. The amount of people, the attention that I've gotten from people that are interested in coaching here. I've gotten calls from 4 head coaches in the NFL in the last 3 days, not wanting to come coach themselves, but recommending people that they felt strongly about. So the amount of people that have expressed an interest in being here is really cool. It's a little bit different from a time frame standpoint because so many of these coaches are still playing their own seasons, and they have teams to coach right now as well. And I want to get it done as soon as possible. There's no question about it, but I'm not going to be rushed. We're going to put together a premier staff. It's a perfect fit for Carolina.
Mark Berman.
How you and Shane? Congratulations.
Appreciate it, Mark.
As you've said, how does being the son of a legendary coach, not only as a son, but you played for him and you worked for him, how has that shaped you into the head coach standing here today?
So many ways. I grew up the son of a coach, obviously. You mentioned I played for him. You mentioned I coached with him. So the experiences I saw from him, not only at Virginia Tech, but at Murray State. And people that have followed college football for a long time know that Virginia Tech always wasn't always what it was when he finished his career. There were some early lean years in our time in Blacksburg. Sophomore year in high school, Virginia Tech won 2 football games. That was his 6th year at Virginia Tech. He never would have made it past the 6th season in today's time. The year before that, I believe they won 5. He never would have made it to a 6th season. But being able to see how he handled that, the ups, the downs, his consistency and steadiness day in, day out. I hope I've taken a lot of qualities from my dad, but that's one that I definitely hope I've taken more than any other, is just that steadiness and consistency that you've got to have as a leader when everyone's looking at you. And if you're high and low and on an emotional roller coaster, it's going to be tough. And he's certainly that way. And I learned that from him and saw so many good things. He tells the story all the time that when I told him I wanted to get into coaching, he said, "Are you absolutely nuts? You've been around this profession and grew up in it, and you've seen the highs and the lows and want to be a part of it." And I did. So he certainly rubbed off on me in a lot of ways, and the desire to coach and those qualities certainly were right at the top.
Pete Acabelli.
Hey, Shane, congratulations again and welcome back.
Thank you.
What you mentioned that your dad would not have been allowed to stay 6 seasons in today's environment. How quickly do you envision turning things around here?
No, great question. Coach Tanner and President Caslin, they didn't hire me to come in here and present a 8-year plan or 5-year plan or anything like that. I'm a process-driven person, and we're going to get started day one, advancing this program and making it better. That starts with the current players on our team. It starts with recruiting, getting more and more guys in here, and just trying to advance this program and getting a little bit better each and every day. And I know it's cliche, but it's the truth. You can't think long-term. I'm trying to do everything that I can here, get this press conference, we'll finish this up, and then get right back on the phone with recruits and current players on this team and whatnot as well, and just move it forward a little bit more each and every day, and we'll get where we want to go, and hopefully that's sooner rather than later.
Rick Henry.
Hey, Shane, once again, congratulations and welcome home. During your time here with Coach Spurrier, what are some of the, I guess, the best lessons that you learned from him or things that you can apply now that you're a head coach? And also, head coaches, based on their backgrounds, if they come from the offensive side of the football, that's where they're going to spend their most time. Or if it's defense, like with Coach Spurrier, people would come to practice and ask me, "Hey, where's Coach Spurrier?" I would say, "Look for the quarterbacks." And I was wondering, if when we're allowed to come back to practice, where will we find you on the practice field?
I see what you did there. Good to see you, Rick, and glad you're doing well as well. And great to have you on this call. I learned a lot from Coach Spurrier. I mean, he's a guy that I grew up watching with what he did at the University of Florida. So I still remember sitting at a restaurant having lunch in Starkville, Mississippi, one February day, and I got a cell phone call from an 803 area code, and it was Steve Spurrier calling to see if I was interested in coming to coach at the University of South Carolina. And what a surreal moment that was. And exciting as a guy that, as a fan of college football, grew up watching his Florida teams play, growing up in Blacksburg, Virginia, when he was the head coach of the Washington Redskins, and then to have a guy of his stature call me and give me an opportunity was a really cool moment and a great opportunity, and learned so much from him. But really just the confidence and the confidence and the swagger that he lived his life with each and every day, the competitive spirit that he had. I'll never forget going to play golf with him one day. And my first time, you guys know how he loves to play golf. And we went and played. The first time I ever got to play with him, I'd gone out the time before and I played golf with a couple coaches and played pretty well, a little bit better than what I actually am. They came back to him and told him, Coach, this new coach you just hired's a heck of a golfer. He just went out and shot this and beat us and all that. So obviously that perked us up, got his attention perked up pretty quickly. Went and played golf, and he put me up in the A group, as he called it, which was his first group and his foursome, and got out there. I was nervous as all heck and didn't play well the first 2 holes. And by the time we got to the third tee box, he had kicked me out of his group, told me that I needed to go back and play with the F troop behind us. And that was kind of my first indoctrination to Coach Spurrier and what a competitor he is. But he's that way on the golf course, and he was that way on the practice field. And coaching quarterbacks, calling offense, he was all about competing in everything that he did. And that was a great lesson for me to see that, and just the confidence. The players fed off that. When your head coach has that confidence that Coach Spurrier did, they feed off of it, and they play that way. And that's one of many things I certainly learned from him. And he certainly hasn't changed. And it's an honor for me to be the head coach here at a place where he did such a great job.
Colin Taylor.
Hey, Shane, just first of all, congrats on the new job. I'm curious, you mentioned recruiting. How's that gone over the last, since you've been able to do it, and kind of what's been your pitch to either the guys you have committed in this class or the guys that you're now calling?
No, it's the response has been pretty amazing. A lot of these guys that we're currently recruiting at South Carolina, we were also recruiting at the University of Oklahoma, whether it be young men in this class that's about to sign, or young men in the 2022 class, 2023 class, and beyond. So I've got I got a good relationship with a lot of these guys because we were also recruiting them at Oklahoma. So when my name got out and was mentioned as a candidate, heard from so many of those guys that expressed an interest at potentially coming here and joining me here in Columbia, which is exciting. More and more guys like that have reached out, continuing to figure out our plan going forward with the current commits in this class. Looking forward to getting on the phone with the rest of those guys. I've talked to a lot of them, and we'll continue to, the ones that I haven't been able to get in touch with. And like I mentioned it, just the amazing resources here and what this place has to offer. Amazing fan base, amazing city to live in, amazing state to represent, elite academics. You have everything. People talk about it's maybe a struggle to win at Carolina, or why can't you win at Carolina? And you absolutely can. You have everything that you absolutely need to win here. We've done it before at a high level, and we're going to get back to that. I take great pride, like I said, in that Carolina logo on my chest and what this program and what this university means, and can't wait to get out and attack recruiting each and every day and work the competition and get high character, competitive guys that want to be in here and want to represent the University of South Carolina in this program.
Gene Sapakoff.
Hey, Shane, congratulations. You said you wanted to build a premier staff. Do you have a commitment from the university that you can spend money that would be at the high end of the SEC scale in building your staff? And then also, the last few years, South Carolina's had a very small staff of analysts. Would you like a larger staff of analysts, and what kind of resumes would you be looking for that gig?
No, there's my conversations with Coach Tanner and our leadership. We went through everything. We went through staff. We went through support staff. The investment has been made and given to me to give us every opportunity, every resource that we need to be successful. I've been around different aspects and spectrums when it comes to support staff, recruiting departments, and all that. Some programs where you have more than you know what to do with in a lot of ways, to the very smallest scale where it's the bare minimum. So I've seen both. I've seen both work, and we're going to do what's the best fit for Carolina. But I'm confident that anything that we need to advance this program forward and give us what we need to be successful, those assurances have certainly been given to me.
Joe Gorchow.
Hello, Coach. Congratulations and welcome back to Columbia. What I want to ask you is that this team, especially the last couple of seasons, has struggled to find ways to win. So I'm wondering, when you take over a program like this, how do you establish confidence in that winner's edge to find the results on the field?
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday in the team meeting. I'm big on competition, and we want to compete in every single thing that we do. We want to compete in off-season workouts when our guys get back and get into the weight room. We want to compete, obviously, on the practice field. We want to compete on the game fields on Saturday, but we also want to compete in the classroom. In everything that we do, I want to be about competition and being elite in all that we do and being the very best in all that we do, and learning how to win, and learning that developing leaders, all that stuff leads to winning. And there's no question as we attack each day and try and move this thing forward with constant improvement that we will learn that and put ourselves in position to be extremely successful.
Greg Hadley at the State.
Hey, Coach, congratulations. I was just curious, you mentioned the coaching timeline, putting that together, and how some of those guys are still working and recruiting and still going to Oklahoma. How chaotic are these next few weeks going to be for you?
Pretty chaotic. I haven't slept much since this thing was finalized, which is a good problem. And there's a lot to get done. But Coach Tanner was telling me earlier this morning an old Jim Valvano theory that you have 3 8-hour shifts in a day. And that's how we're going to attack this thing. Coach Riley and I have talked about it, and with our schedule that's set up at Oklahoma, certainly is very conducive to allowing me to do what I need to do as the head coach at South Carolina in the afternoons and evenings, and being able to do 2 different jobs. I saw Kirby Smart do it when he became the head coach at Georgia when they were working for a playoff or in the playoff and for a national championship. So it's a little bit different. The time frame's certainly different, but it's going to be chaotic. I don't think there's enough hours in the day to do everything that we need to do. But one thing Lincoln told me yesterday is just compartmentalize things and get a thing what you have to accomplish each and every day and try and attack that. You can't do it all at once, and it'll be chaotic, but I'm excited about it and have a great group of people around me here in this facility to help me with that, and we'll get it done.
Eric Boynton.
Yeah, Coach, congratulations. Do you have to kind of settle in to a little time at South Carolina before and to take a look around and see what needs to be fixed? Or do you arrive in there with a plan in mind, certain steps, a certain process of just what it's going to take to get this program turned around as quickly as possible?
No, I mean, I certainly trying to get in here and learn as much about the program as I can. I've been following it from the outside for the last 10 years and have a pretty good sense of what's in this program and where we are. But until you're sitting in that chair and until you're actually in this building and right in the middle of it as the leader, you're certainly going to find things. So I absolutely have a plan of how we're going to attack this and my vision going forward for sure. But then you learn something each and every day and utilize that and learn from it and grow. And that's what we're certainly going to do each and every day as this process gets rolling.
Mike Yuba.
Hey, Shane, welcome back to Columbia. Greg kind of asked you the question before in terms of just, and I know you talked about at the beginning, in terms of balancing and finishing things out at Oklahoma. Does it make things, was it the decision a little bit easier this year in terms because of the recruiting and not being able to go on the road? Would that have changed things up for you a little bit? As well as, did you have a conversation with Ray Tanner about this before today?
We did. Coach Tanner and I, we talked through different scenarios throughout the interview process, the multiple times that we visited. We talked about different scenarios, what ifs, things like that. So we had a plan for every different scenario from an Oklahoma standpoint, from a South Carolina standpoint. We talked about it all and felt confident with the plan that we put together. And that's a good question. Obviously, it makes it easier because whatever I'm able to do from a recruiting standpoint is the same thing that any coach in this country is able to do right now from a competitive standpoint. They're not going on the road. And if this was a contact period where you are, it certainly would change things because I would need to be in living rooms tonight without a doubt, and living rooms yesterday and so on and so forth. So it is different and fortunate that things work out the way they did, where as crazy as 2020 has been and as crazy as the different scenarios are with not being able to do things, that it makes this transition not easier, but a little bit more conducive to be able to do 2 jobs at once.
And Shane, I have to ask you one more question. Does Beamer Ball belong to your father, or is Beamer Ball coming to Columbia now?
There's certainly going to be aspects of Beamer Ball. I think that's probably copyrighted up in Blacksburg. But when you talk about Beamer Ball, you talk about the attacking, you talk about the ability to score on offense, defense, and special teams is what I think about when somebody says Beamer Ball. So we may not use the term Beamer Ball exactly, but playing that way and having that aspect as a part of our program is certainly something we're going to be about and opportunistic and attacking constantly whoever's on the field for us.
Phil Kornbluth.
There we go. Hey, there we go. Hey, Shane.
Hey, Phil.
Congratulations, and good to see you once again. I got 3 quick ones for you. It looks like, based on their Twitters, that Travaris Robinson and Kyle Krantz might be moving on. Can you confirm that, number one? Number two, if South Carolina is asked to play in a bowl game, is that something you want to do? And then number three, Clemson. When you left here, things were pretty even between the programs. Perhaps the Gamecocks were well ahead. It's kind of flipped since you've been gone. What are your plans about attacking the so-called Clemson problem for the Gamecocks?
3 questions, Phil, from one end of the spectrum to the other. I see a lot of things haven't changed in the 10 years since I left. All right, let me back up. The first one. Conversations that I had with our coaches yesterday, I'll keep between us and the coaching staff. There's certainly some things that are open-ended and want to keep those conversations private, and that's certainly between us. In regards to a bowl game, that's probably a better question for Coach Tanner and President Caslen. But I know for me, if South Carolina is playing in a bowl game, it would be a great resource, great opportunity for me to be able to come over. I would not coach in the bowl game, but at least have a chance to get around here and watch our guys practice and see what we're about on the field. Bowl games are always good because in a lot of ways it's an extra spring practice. You get a chance to get out there and develop young guys and continue to move this program forward. So if we're able to do that from my standpoint, I think that would be great. And you mentioned that program in the upstate, and they're certainly on a pretty good run right now. But when I was here before, we were on a pretty dang good run ourselves against those guys as well. And it's a big challenge, and we're going to work every single day in recruiting in this facility to have a team that we can be proud of on the field, and that'll result with the way we play, the way we play on the field, and certainly great respect for those guys. But looking forward to getting in there and competing. I know that for a fact.
Josh Kendall.
Hey, Shane. When you talk about the preparations that you've made to become a head coach, what did that look like? Is that a bunch of binders in your house? Is that scribbling stuff down on napkins or putting notes in your phone? What was the process?
The above. For one, I would say the roles that I've had, Josh, have prepared me for this opportunity. I've coached offense, I've coached defense, and I've coached special teams. So I've got a pretty good knowledge of all 3 phases in football. When you're the special teams coordinator, you have to manage an entire roster, not just the positions, the guys that you coach or your side of the ball. You have to have relationships with, if I'm coaching tight ends, I've got to have a relationship with the linebackers coach, the defensive backs, the defensive line, the offensive line. The special teams coordinator is the only coach other than the head coach that stands in front of the entire team and talks. So that won't be the first time. Yesterday wasn't the first time I ever did that as an assistant coach. I've been a recruiting coordinator. When you're the recruiting coordinator, you have experience. You have to manage a roster. You have to evaluate talent. You have to manage a coaching staff. You have to manage roster numbers. I had that experience. Growing up the son of a coach, like you talked about, those experiences. I've been an associate head coach. In December 2014, my dad had some health issues that prevented him from coaching for an entire month and coaching in a bowl game. So for an entire month, I was the acting head coach of the football program at Virginia Tech. I ran staff meetings. I ran practices. I put together game plans. And then we went out there and beat a great Cincinnati team in the Military Bowl. So having that experience was beneficial. In those duties as an associate head coach, doing a lot of things like media, fundraising, discipline, a lot of those aspects I've got experience doing in my role with Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma as the assistant head coach for offense, continuing to grow that as well. And then I'm a meticulous note taker. Kim Fields, who is our assistant director of operations here at South Carolina and is an absolute rock star. Kim was here when I was here before, and back in 2007, I started keeping a binder of just ideas if I ever got this opportunity. Kim helped me put it together and started typing it, and I still carry the same binder to this day. It definitely needs to be updated from when she started it back in 2007. But it's just thoughts when it comes to discipline, team travel, nutrition, weight room, coaching staff, motivation, you name it. I've been putting things in that, and then every team meeting, every staff meeting that I've been a part of in my coaching career, I've got notes on. So being able to refer back to that, and a binder or an iPad Pro or whatever it might be is right there. But until you're in that chair, you can prepare all you want. When you sit in that chair, it becomes very, very real, and you realize that. But the way that I prepare myself, I'm certainly confident in my ability to do that. And like I said earlier, I wouldn't have traded my path to this day and the roles that I've had for anything.
Dick Cox.
Hey, Shane, congratulations. Welcome back to South Carolina. Two quick questions. First one, do you plan to have your father involved in any capacity in your program? And number two, projected that South Carolina could possibly be invited to play Virginia Tech in a bowl game. What would be your thoughts on that?
Wow, I hadn't heard that. That'd be pretty amazing. How things certainly come full circle. So we'll see what happens with that. And yeah, I Coach Tanner and I talked about that with my dad and his role. And obviously we want to do everything within NCAA rules clearly. But Coach Tanner brought that up during the interview process. And without speaking to my dad, I promised Coach Tanner that my dad would certainly be involved heavily in the program. So the minute that, or shortly after that 5.5-hour interview that I had with President Tanner or President Caslin and Coach Tanner and Chance finished, I called my dad and told him how it went. And I said, look, I'm sorry, but I may have spoke for you and promised something that I can't get back out of. But no, he's all for it. He loves this place. He enjoyed coming here to visit. When we lived here before, I still rely on him and his expertise to this day. Still call him and ask advice, whether it be X's and O's questions or just football leadership questions. And Lincoln was very accommodating to my dad when he came out to games at Oklahoma, to practices at Oklahoma, allowed him to sit in meetings. And I certainly want him involved in our program as well. I don't know how much it'll be because of me or because he's got 3 grandchildren that'll now be living in Columbia, and then 3 grandchildren that are in Charlotte with my sister. So whatever excuse we got to use to get him down here, and the great golf courses in this area, I'm pretty confident that you'll be seeing him a lot around this program.
Let's go to Marty Smith.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you, my friend. Long way from Giles High School and Blacksburg High. Back in the days.
Friday Night Lights, brother. We're just all so thrilled for you, man. I know you haven't been on campus but 30 hours or whatever it is, but as this thing materialized, I imagine you started to dig in a little bit at what assets you have at your disposal. I wonder, going in, what do you believe is the greatest obstacle that you face, and what assets most excite you?
As far as obstacles, I don't look at it that way. I just see great opportunities and great things in front of me. And the resources here, the way this program is positioned to have success from a resource standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, from the recruiting base around us, from what Coach Tanner and the administration have given me to allow us to be successful, it's exciting. And, I don't see any negatives. I see just so many awesome positives and opportunities in front of us to get out there and go attack. And the support of our former players, the support of the Carolina family, it's special and it's different. I've coached at so many places in my 21-year career, and this is a unique place in so many amazing ways. And it's why my wife and I wanted to come back here so much because of we know how special it is and what it can be. And that's exciting to see. I mean, the emotions that we felt as a family watching Coach Tanner win a College World Series on television, wishing we were there, to watch Dawn Staley and the success she's had, Coach Martin in the Final Four run a couple years ago. And then to see the reaction and the love and the passion from the fan base here at Carolina, you want to coach at a place like that has that something special, unique, and we certainly do. And this passionate fan base is second to none, and can't wait to be a part of that.
Michael Lanana.
Yes, sir.
Michael Lanana. You're in mute, Mike.
Thank you. Hey, Shane. Congratulations on the job, first of all. I remember meeting your father maybe 7 or 8 years ago when I was an intern at an ACC magazine, and I think what struck me about him was when he'd walk into a room, just the level of admiration people had for him, just kind of the prestige that he had. But at the same time, he felt like he was authentic. You know, he would joke around with you. He just seemed like an authentic person. For you, as you're starting as a head coach, how important is just establishing that kind of character, you know, projecting that kind of prestige and that aura, but also just being yourself too? Just how do you balance that and how do you do it?
Great point, and I appreciate you saying that. And you're so right. That was probably one of the other amazing lessons I learned from him was just how you treat people. From he and my mom both, and as successful as he was as a head coach, I say this all the time, and it's true. He was the exact same person when he coached in the national championship game and was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame a few years ago, as he was back in 1992 when he won 2 games and was almost fired. The success never changed him. The way that he treated people never changed. I saw that, and it's real because people recognize authentic, and that's what we're going to be. If I got up there in front of the players yesterday, and I knew it was naive of me to sit up there and tell them that they needed to trust me and all this. They didn't come to play football here at South Carolina for me. They came to play for Coach Will Muschamp and his staff. But what I told those guys is I was always going to be truthful with them. I was always going to be honest. I was always going to be real, and I was always going to be genuine. And I will work to earn their trust each and every day, and it's the absolute truth. And people see through phoniness. And if I got up here right now and tried to be somebody that I'm not, it's not going to work. You know, whatever your style is regardless of how I've prepared and coaches I've learned from and coaches I've been around, I've got to be Shane Beamer, and that's what I'm going to be. And people see that. They see that authenticity. I saw that from my dad, and that's very much what I'm about also.
Cam Gaskins.
Hey, Coach, Cam Gaskins, ABC Columbia. You mentioned earlier about the recruiting successes that you had your time at South Carolina. We all know what those guys went on to do here. As you're kind of looking for that next group of impact recruits to hopefully bring South Carolina back to that level of success, what's at the top of that list of what you're looking for out of the guys you're bringing into this program?
To me, guys that want to be here and guys that want to represent this great program and take great pride in being a football player at the University of South Carolina. I told the players yesterday how a core value that is very big with me in my life on and off the field is gratitude, and how grateful I am for this opportunity that's been given to me to be the head football coach here. And I want a team that feels the same way and understands what an amazing opportunity and how special it is to be a Gamecock. That's what I want to begin with is guys that want to be here. And then obviously every position has physical attributes that you're looking for. But at the end of the day, if you have a bunch of guys that are high character, extremely competitive, and have a passion for playing football, the rest of that stuff will take care of itself. So those are guys that we're going to those are the guys that we're going to target. Those are the guys that we're going to recruit, and have a bunch of guys out there that are as grateful to be a Gamecock as I am.
Hale McGranahan.
Hey, Coach, sort of on that subject, what are going to be some of the areas that you'll try to focus on and recruit? Obviously, in-state is a big one, but what some of the other states and regions around the country that you think will be your footprint?
Go where there's players, and I've always recruited this region and have a lot of ties. And I've recruited North Carolina, I've recruited South Carolina, I've recruited Georgia, I've recruited Florida, I've been in Tennessee recruiting. Obviously, I'm from Virginia. We've had a great amount of success with players from Virginia and Washington, D.C. and Maryland, and that's an area that I want to continue to tap into. And I say that I've heard from a lot of high school coaches. I've heard from a lot of high school coaches too in Virginia and the surrounding areas as well that either I played with in college or have known for a long, long time. So it's exciting to have those guys reach out. And then a great experience for me too was being at Oklahoma. University of Oklahoma is in a state that doesn't produce a lot of Power 5 football players each and every year. So because of that, we had to recruit nationally at Oklahoma. So I was able to develop ties really anywhere throughout the country, recruiting players for OU. It never stopped here in this area. We're always going to start in South Carolina. We saw the foundation was laid here 10 years ago with great players from this state. So we're always going to start right here in this state with the great high school football players, the great high school programs, and the amazing high school coaches. But then my connections in these surrounding areas as well is one that we're going to dive into. And we're in a great location, close to so much. If you talk about 3-hour radius, 4-hour radius just around Columbia. There's so many great players in here, and there's absolutely no reason why a guy would not want to come play football here at the University of South Carolina. And if you're a guy in this state, if you're a young man in this state, understanding that you can accomplish all of your goals on and off the field right here in Columbia, and you don't have to go anywhere else to do that. That was what we talked to Alshon Jeffrey about when I sat in his living room when we were recruiting him. That's what we talked to Marcus Lattimore about. That's what we talked to Stephon Gilmore, Devontae Holloman. We talked to all those guys about that. I can go on and on. I know I'm leaving a ton of guys out, but it's true. And that certainly hasn't changed. And if anything, it's only increased that opportunity and the possibility to do that because of what's been built around here and the way this program's been advanced.
Obviously, a lot of college coaches use some sort of a hashtag or whatever online to signify they've gotten a new guy. Have you already come up with something along those lines, or will you stick to what's been used around here recently? Or
we're going to work on that. Obviously, we've got amazingly talented guys in this building, guys like Justin King and his staff and our recruiting department. And we'll figure out the best way of going forward. We plan on using that quite a bit as we get this recruiting going for sure, and want to do something that's good for all of us. And that's certainly one of the things that we need to attack going forward and figure out a plan on that.
Mitch Brown.
Coach, obviously, outside of the SEC schools that you've been able to coach at, you've got relationships at Oklahoma, relationships at Virginia Tech as well. Are those schools that you would like to play down the road while you're here? And then also, you've been in Columbia for a while, so people need to know, are you a Russia's guy or are you a Zesto guy?
Good question. I may plead fifth on that one and just not answer that. We've got a lot of great restaurants that we love here, and we've spent a lot of time as a family in Columbia or driving through Columbia on the way to the coast and different places during the summertime. And we've certainly got some of our favorite places that we love to eat, and both of those are some of them, as well as along with the many other restaurants in that as well. And I'm sorry, what was your first question, Mitch? I apologize.
It was just, you have the relationships at Oklahoma and Virginia Tech. Are those schools that you would like to schedule games with down the road?
Yeah, well, Coach Tanner and Chance Miller, they've done a great job of scheduling us out, for the immediate future and our future opponents, which I'm excited about, and teams in this region and some natural rivals, which I'm certainly excited about as well. And as we dive into that, we'll play anyone, anywhere, and we're excited about that and excited to going to compete. And we'll work with Coach and Chance and our administration on any future opponents as well, what's best for Carolina. And I know there's some games, I believe, that haven't been announced that are going to be exciting as well going forward that I'm certainly looking forward to also.
John Whittle.
Hey, Shane, congratulations. I'm curious, what kind of qualities are important to you when you look to hire assistant coaches? And if you could kind of specifically speak to the coordinator positions about what qualities are important there.
Yeah, I want guys on this staff that have a lot of the same values I do. Guys that, I want high character guys. I want good people that are in this program, that are investing in our players' lives each and every day, that are setting great examples of the kind of husbands and fathers they are to their own families if they have families. And that's, high character to begin with. You're not going to get in the door if you're not with me. I want great teachers. X's and O's knowledge, great recruiters, elite recruiters is what we're looking for, and a group of guys that are driven and are not complacent and have a passion for this university and advancing this program like I do. And then in regards to the coordinator roles, a lot of that goes back to what I mentioned earlier, just as far as the style of play that we're looking for and what's best for our program. Guys that are able to adjust. Guys that have great knowledge of X's and O's and different systems, and guys that are proven and have a track record of doing it at a high level for a long time is what I'm looking for.
Travis Wells.
Hey, Shane, congratulations.
Thanks, Travis.
You talked about all the different roles you've had in your career. I want to go back to maybe your first role that we talked about a few years ago, rolling that cable and practicing rolling the cable and plugging it in your garage, and just how that experience, as mundane as it may have seemed, kind of shaped just your meticulous approach to every aspect of the game and learning this game.
Yeah, what Travis is referring to is when my dad became the head coach at Virginia Tech, I wanted to be on the sidelines in the worst way. We moved there when I was 10 years old and was told that I couldn't be on the field during games unless I had a role. I wanted to be a ball boy, and I was told, well, we got ball boys. You're too young to do that. I wanted to be a a trainer and hand out water. And they said, well, we got people for that. You can't do that either. So they eventually came up back in the days of headphones that still had cords or cables to them. Was able to become the cord carrier. So I wanted to do a great job of that. Was very meticulous, still am to this day, very detailed. So I went out in our garage in Blacksburg, Virginia, and got a long extension cord. I just plugged it into the wall, and I just walked around the garage practicing the headset cable, because I didn't want to get out there on Saturday and screw things up and mess anything up. But I appreciate you saying that, because it was. I hope I've maintained those qualities since that day of wanting to do a great job, that no detail is too small. And I know I keep quoting things from my dad, but one thing he always talks about still to this day is take care of the little things and the big things will follow. And so many of you guys that have followed Virginia Tech over the years, I'm sure I've heard him say that, and it's true. And how those details become big things, and it represents everything, whether it be plugging a cord into the wall of our garage when I was 10 years old, or whether it be how clean the locker room is downstairs in this football facility, or if we're all supposed to be wearing white socks, we're all wearing white socks, or whatever it may be, that we all look alike. The little things are important. We're uniform and detailed and disciplined in all that we do. And then that carries over to the big things and allows you to have success. Thanks, Travis.
Excellent.
We still have 8 questions in the queue. So if you're not already in the queue, we're going to cut it off after that. Kyle Thomas with the next one.
Coach, first of all, congratulations and thank you for doing this, sir. Talk to me about the culture that you hope to foster and create in this program this year.
Yeah, this my vision and core values that I'm big on. I mean, I talked to the players about this yesterday. Is love, and it may sound corny, but love and each other, loving this university, loving this team. And when you have that love within a football team, it resonates. Gratitude's very big with me, and being grateful for being here. I'm a positive person. I'm a positive energy guy, high energy on the practice field, high energy the way that I live my life. And I want to be around people that have those same qualities. So that's something that I hope people see with this program. And trust is big with me. President Caslin talked about it earlier, and it's true. Working hard to earn that trust of the players on this team, our fan base, our coaching staff. That's what we're going to be about to you guys. And all that stuff. It starts with discipline. It starts with leadership, and we've got to develop leaders on this football team. And excited to get into our off season when our guys get back on campus for good in 2021 and develop that leadership and being able to instill a lot of those core values and some other ones that are very big with me to allow us to move forward and have success. But I want a program that plays with great joy and great passion on Saturdays, and that you see that in the way they live their lives also day in, day out.
John Del Bianco.
Shane, thanks for doing this. Welcome to Columbia. Congratulations. How much of this roster are you familiar with already, given, you've said that you're very familiar recruiting these areas, and that's where a lot of these kids are from?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I've Coach Riley and I came over here trying to recruit Jordan Burks and Boogie Huntley when they were over at Hammond, and we tried to recruit Zach Pickens when I was at a previous school as well. So Marshawn Lloyd, I was familiar with recruiting that area at other schools that I've been at. So familiar with the roster because we tried to recruit a lot of the same guys and knew of these guys, whether we recruited them or not. Jaheim Bell on the team here right now was somebody that took a visit to Oklahoma. So I know a pretty good amount about these guys. I've tried to follow Carolina as much as I can, like I talked about, whether it be watching it on TV or watching coaches show each week and things like that. And, I've got a pretty good idea of what's on this team right now, but being able to get in here and watch video on these guys. But at the same time, it's a fresh start as well. This is 2021 is a new football season, and I really don't care what's happened here in the past. I really don't care what's been done on the field from that standpoint. We're moving forward, and it's a fresh start for all of us, and can't wait to get this thing started with these guys, whether I knew them during the recruiting process or just met them yesterday.
Thank you. And if I could follow up for Steve Fink, is Ray Tanner going to be available to answer any questions after Coach Beamer wraps up?
Yes, we'll make Ray available.
Great, thank you.
Ben with the next one.
Shane, I wanted to ask, how much of a challenge is it having to kind of, with the coming easements of transfer restrictions, how much of an emphasis is it re-recruiting and getting, the current roster to stay on board with, how that world's going to change, and how does that kind of operate when you're also going to be in Oklahoma for at least the next few weeks?
No, great question. It's certainly a different time and unprecedented when it comes to college football, and 2020 is crazy in itself. And then with what you're referring to as well, it certainly makes it a lot different. And I don't look at it as re-recruiting. It's getting to know these guys and making sure they understand what I'm about as the head football coach, and what this program is going to be about, and talking to them about this program and how we're going to go about things each and every day, on and off the field. We talked yesterday about being demanding, that it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard work. That's what it takes to get where we want to go. It's going to be demanding. We're going to hold these guys accountable. It's not just going to be words on a wall. It's going to be the way that we live our lives every single day, and we're not going to deviate from that. And we're going to have the right guys that want to be a part of that culture, want to be a part of that program for those reasons. And the response I got from those guys that visited with me right after that meeting was really awesome. And then the guys that I talked to on the phone last night, it's continuing to just get to know these guys and understanding what we're going to be about going forward. And we'll have the right guys that'll be here for sure. And being able to do that in Oklahoma, look, a lot of our guys, they're finishing up exams, obviously, and they got to finish academically. They got to finish everything strong. But a lot of these guys aren't in Columbia right now. They've gone home at this point. So it's not like the team's in the building and I'm missing out on an opportunity to visit with those guys. I'm talking to them on the phone. I met with them all yesterday, and I'm not just going to go back to Oklahoma and not talk to them again in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be communicating with these guys throughout and be consistent about that.
Colin Taylor.
Shane, two questions for you. You kind of mentioned that 5.5-hour interview, and just when you met with them and Ray Tanner, what was the plan you laid out? What does the plan for success look like to you? And I guess there's a video of you circulating naming that tune with your dad at Virginia Tech. I'm curious, what does a pregame playlist look like for Shane Beamer?
That's a good question. As far as the interview process, that Coach Tanner can probably, talk more about that when he gets up here and talk about things from that. But we just talked about the things that I believe in as a head coach, and things that I'm passionate about. We talked about things that I've already answered in regards to offense, defense, special teams. We talked a lot about coaching staff and support staff. And we talked about why I want to be at Carolina, and how much I love this place, and how much I wanted to be the head coach here, and why. So all that went, throughout that. And I hope that my passion for this job showed to President Caslin and Coach Tanner and Chance throughout that process, and that passion resonated with them, because I certainly felt it. It wasn't the first time Coach Tanner and I ever talked on the phone. I had about 10 pages of notes that I wanted to be able to refer to. And I talked to him. I was in my office back in Norman, had the door shut and had everything spread out across my desk. And we talked on the phone for over an hour that first night. And not one time did I look at a single page of notes, because I was speaking from the heart. And it wasn't something that I all of a sudden had to cram for and prepare for 24 hours. I knew what I felt about this place. I knew what I believed in as a football coach and what I wanted this program to be about. So I don't want to say it was the easiest interview. That phone conversation wasn't easy. No, Coach Tanner gets tired of me telling this story, but the interview was a 5.5-hour process, and all he gave me was a bottled water the entire time. I didn't eat. I didn't get to stand up and use the restroom. I sat there for 5.5 hours and got grilled. Not like this press conference is right now. So appreciate all you guys staying with me, I know, and being patient, but it was easy, and Coach mentioned it, and I agree. He made the comment as it was wrapping up that we could sit here and talk all night, and I truly felt that way. It was the connection that I had with Coach Tanner and Chance and President Caslin, but then what we were talking about, it was something that I love and is near and dear to my family and I, and it was something that I enjoyed talking about. It wasn't a sell job; it was me being me and me being real and me being genuine for sure.
Yeah, just 3 more. Dick Cox with the next one.
Yes. About you as a person, if South Carolina people do not know a whole lot about Shane Beamer, what's the most important thing you want the fans to know about you as a person?
Great question. I'm a family man. Talked about it earlier. My family is so important to me. They're going to be heavily invested in this program. They're going to be around as much as they're allowed to be. When we get going, you're going to see us in the community. We absolutely love this city. and want to be involved in the community. We absolutely love this campus and will be involved in this campus. And I'm a people person, as is my family. So we're going to be heavily involved. I'm a people person that wants to get out and meet with people. And I hope that my genuineness shows. I talked about it. I'm a high energy guy. Love being around people, high energy, positive, hope to stay consistent, try and treat people right, and just live my life in a way that, my wife and children are proud of me when I come home at night, and I'm proud of myself when I look myself in the mirror before I go to bed, and just try and live your life that way. And I've had a lot of people that have reached out just to say, how happy they are for me, and that it's because of, they appreciate how I treated them when I was there at a school, whether they were a walk-on or the starting quarterback. Man, I just try and be consistent, and everybody's the same in my book. And that's what I'm about. And on a little bit of a lower level, I try to be an athletic guy. I enjoy sports. I love to read, love to learn from other coaches. I love to study leadership. I just ordered President Caslin's book during this interview process and started that as well, and looking forward to continuing to dive into that, and highly recommend that book if you haven't already gotten it on leadership. And as I did my research on I knew a lot about this school, but obviously my research on President Caslin, and then obviously I knew Coach Tanner, but the amount of people that talked about the people in this program and what these guys are about made me more excited about coming back here and looking forward to working with them.
Michael and Anna.
Hey, Shane. I read a story about you when you were, I guess, 9 or 10 years old, just wearing a Fisher Price headset and pretending to kind of be like your dad and being a head coach. And, obviously you've thought about being a head coach for a while, and just curious, how did you sort of visualize what this day would be like, being a head coach, specifically maybe becoming a head coach at South Carolina, and how has it compared just with the strangeness of COVID-19 and talking to us over Zoom and a computer screen? Just how has it compared, and what were you sort of visualizing? Yeah,
thanks, Michael. You guys are good. Y'all came up with the headphones, the cord in the wall in the garage. You got to name that tune back from Virginia Tech. They got the Fisher Price headsets. But no, I knew I wanted to get into coaching. And when I was young, the house we used to live in Virginia had a pair of the old Fisher Price headsets, and stood on the deck of our house in Blacksburg, Virginia, wore the headset, and I recruited some of the kids in the neighborhood, my sister, her friends, our neighbors. They were the team out there on the field, and I coached them. So I stood up in the press box and called plays down to the other coach on the practice field, and that was my first experience as a coach for sure. So great memories, without a doubt. And like I said, something that I've been preparing for, and you envision how it's going to go. Certainly wasn't like this in my dreams, staring at you guys on a screen and not having my family here, but the excitement and the emotion of being the head coach at South Carolina has only been stronger than what I envisioned it being. Getting that call from Coach Tanner the other night, and not knowing exactly what he was going to say, and going in another room, and he wanted to make small talk for 2 or 3 minutes and talk about different things as well. But after a couple minutes, for him to say, "You ready to do this?" Was something that I've been dreaming of hearing for a long time. And to hear him say that was better than I could ever have imagined. And to walk out of that room and see the reaction of my wife and our kids when I shook my head yes and told them that it was real and happening, I'll never forget. And that was a special moment that I've been dreaming of for a long time, and was really cool. And can't put it into words how excited I am.
Last question goes to David Kleiner.
Shane, with Oklahoma, if they should get to the CFP or to any bowl game, will you be with them there?
Yeah, we hadn't talked about that far. My conversations with Coach Riley and Coach Tanner were, let's get through this week. Got West Virginia this week, and then the championship game next Saturday. Let's get through these next 2 weeks, and then we'll see where we are. But I can tell you that I'm eager to be back here and full speed ahead and back in Columbia and not looking back as soon as possible.
All right, with that, we'll let Shane take a breath and sit down and bring up Coach.
And for being here today and your patience as well.
All right, the introduction of new South Carolina head football coach Shane Beamer. we'll post the video of Tanner later on. I figured it's gone long enough there as far as the actual stream here, and we'll post the Tanner deal after. But Chris, you are muted right now, by the way. I'm going to warn you on this one before I go to you. What is your very first reaction to what we've just seen from Shane Beamer's introductory press conference?
I think, first reaction, there's probably a couple of things, but the number one thing is the passion that he has for being at South Carolina is pretty evident. It's not just, and look, what does that equate to? We don't know yet. We'll know. But it does mean something. It says something. This is not just a guy that's happy because he's getting a huge pay raise, or happy because he's a head coach for the first time, or happy because he's got an SEC job. It's something that, if Shane Beamer could have his pick of head coaching jobs, this is a place that if it's not at the top of the list, it's probably number one, just because of the love that he has for this place. And so, that's pretty evident. And I think secondly, when every coach that has a press conference, we'd probably be hard pressed to find one that doesn't use some word like culture or, something like, everybody's going to talk about that. But when you look at Beamer, some of the things that he said about how you build that makes you think that the way that he's going to try to establish that is a little different, is a little unique. And the type of person he is, probably if you're a Gamecock fan, might give you some hope that he can build that type of culture. When he talks about trust and the types of players he wants to recruit, the type of people that he wants to have on his staff, it's more of a sort of real and active culture as opposed to just saying it as a recruiting pitch. And time will tell how that builds and if they do get there. But I think those are the two main things that stood out to me, after the press conference.
So I wrote down a couple things. I'm not a huge note taker, but I probably need to be a better note taker. His throwbacks to his previous times at South Carolina and just all the people that he thanked to start out. He remembered to thank his wife, which apparently his dad forgot to do in his initial press conference. But there was a Mike McGee reference, former South Carolina AD, at South Carolina, how Mike McGee interviewed Frank Beamer at one point for a South Carolina job. I guess he didn't reiterate it. He said it for the first time to the public, but reiterated his message to the team about why he felt it was important to go to Oklahoma. Something, if there are readers on Gamecock Central, they already sort of learned, why that was. But I thought that was important for him to address. When he talked about Saturday, he said that he that he accepted the job after our game. I thought that was, he was talking about the South Carolina game. He said our game. He didn't say their game. He didn't say the Gamecock game. He said, quote, our game. I feel like he already feels like he's a part of this place. Offense and scheme wise, he said it's got to be flexible. I thought that was interesting. We know it's going to be something. We believe it's going to be something in a Lincoln Riley type mold, but the fact that he thinks it has to be flexible and that you have to mold it to his players, I think was an important note. And he was very careful not to talk about staff. Did not confirm that T-Rob or Kyle Krantz are out. Basically, I think it's just going to let them handle that however they want, which I thought was classy. But he said he wants to hire a premier staff that is a perfect fit for South Carolina, which I think the fit is something that is hard to describe, but something that you're always looking for in a coach, both as far as head coaches go and in your assistants. So that's something, we've heard. Could there be a slightly more slightly more emphasis on maybe having some guys with some connections to this school or even to this area or even to the Carolinas? Possibly. I think that idea has floated around a lot, and him saying it the way he said it sort of triggered my brain there, thinking, that could be something we see as he makes these hires. He also said it was going to be kind of slow. He's going to at least take his time in interviewing people and deciding what he's going to do methodically. But I think there was something to how he answered that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that methodical approach, it sort of, he was very careful to point out that, nowadays in college football, you don't get as much time. People are not as patient. He said during the interview process, he didn't present some 8-year plan to Ray Tanner and Bob Caslen and Chance Miller. But I think something that did stand out during the presser is he talked a lot more about how to get there than the fact that they were going to get there. Did he talk about a championship team and things like that? Yes. But he didn't sit there and harp on that. And just that his message wasn't, we're going to recruit the best athletes and then we're going to win a championship. It was much more about doing the little things and building those to try to lead to that. He described himself as process oriented. And when you say that, you don't need to think, oh no, Nick Saban, it's not really that. It's just that you take care of those little things. So he talked a lot about culture and trust and cultivating relationships with players. And really, I think those are the things that you really need to build not only a winning team, but one that you can sustain, right? Stability, players that buy in. He talked about having the premier culture in college football, which was maybe the strongest thing that he said in terms of what he wants to build. It wasn't, we want to have the greatest, we want to win the most championships of anyone. He said the premier culture. And the point of me saying that is he's trying to use that to drive everything else, the wins. He feels like everything else will fall into place. And so again, those things, time will tell on all those things. But that's the path and sort of the plan that Shane Beamer's laid out for the program.
What do you think the reaction is to the Shane Beamer hire among the fan base as a whole, post press conference compared to pre-press conference? I think judging by our comments as the thing went on, you sort of had, when it started, there was some back and forth about, people excited, people not excited. As it went on, I think you sort of started to see maybe some more comments from people who were probably maybe just more wait and see and on the fence maybe, but started to sort of get it again, something I talked about to start the show. Most coaches are pretty good communicators, pretty good leaders, definite great communicator. You got that. But I think I'll go back to the word I think you used a second ago, Chris, passion. To me, that's my biggest takeaway. I think that's going to be Gamecock fans' biggest takeaway. I was texting with some former Carolina players and just some huge Gamecock fans that are friends of mine, just getting their reactions. People were saying stuff like he crushed it, he nailed it. I like this guy. I think, somebody texted me back and said, we got our guy with our in caps, a big Gamecock fan. I think Carolina fans will look at this hire and look at Shane Beamer, and especially in a post-COVID world where everybody's able to get back out in the community a little bit more, being able to bump into him and his family at a basketball game or something like that, when things are a little bit more normal, hopefully in the not so distant future. I think they're going to look at Shane Beamer and say, this guy is one of us. And I don't know if you ever quite completely got that vibe with the previous staff. And will that directly lead to wins on the field? Of course not. But I do think that is a great sign as far as him being able to build support from this Gamecock community and this Gamecock family.
Well, and look, when we talk about, we know that you're going to have to recruit the best players in order to eventually win, which is any team's goal. Any big time team, you want to win games, you want to try to win a championship. And you also have to have a mix of guys who are really good at football, but also good kids, right? Good families, good kids. You need that balance. And so with South Carolina, it's a unique job. They don't have a big trophy case in that building. They don't have the tradition of a lot of teams that they recruit against, that they play every year, that they need to beat on the recruiting trail for guys to get here, so that they can beat them on the field on a more consistent basis. And so you always think of it as differentiators. You know, what can you do that differentiates you? And maybe it's creating that kind of culture. Maybe that's something that, and it's organic. It's something that Shane Beamer wants to do just because authentically he wants to do it. That's the kind of person he is. He's much more personable in the community. I mean, he likes to do these things, but it's also part of building within your program, establishing that trust that he talked about with players, but it's also part of your recruiting pitch. Your recruiting pitch at South Carolina is not going to be come here and win championships. We've done it a ton. You can't do that. You can't point to that. But what can you point to? It's opportunity, everything being in place that you need here to turn it around, some pockets of success in the past where maybe you do get over that hump, and then pointing to that type of culture. And here's how our coach is, here's how our staff is, here's how our players are, and here's what they like. And so if you can indeed establish a culture like that, that may end up paying dividends for you on the recruiting trail.
No doubt. So, all right, y'all, we're over the 2.5 hour mark. So I think it's time to close this out, but we will have plenty. We actually still have, so we have an insider report up from this morning on GamecockCentral.com. We have a Carolina Confidential up on GamecockCentral.com. Colin Taylor will probably post 13 articles from that press conference, maybe within the hour. In all seriousness, no, he'll have something up probably for the next 3 days. I mean, that was a very long, thorough press conference. Yep. But for real, want to thank everybody for joining us. Hopefully we got some new folks. I'm very, very, as always, appreciative to our loyal watchers and listeners and all that. But the numbers were through the roof. So hopefully we got some new folks on here as well. Hopefully y'all will continue to join us. And, you know, I'm like, I feel like I'm, from an energy standpoint, I'm a little bit drained. I want to give everything that we just heard and saw its proper, more in-depth reaction. I don't know if we can necessarily have digested enough to do that right now. Tomorrow, Chris, we'll be on. We'll continue to go into the press conference, maybe go into what Tanner is saying right now as we're finishing this. And then we're going to start moving this forward. What does it look like in recruiting? What are we hearing about the coaching staff? Maybe we'll have a little bit more information on that as the day goes on tomorrow and into the rest of the week. And, of course, we'll be getting recruiting reactions after Beamer and the staff have talked to guys as well. But it's been really fun. I'm glad our numbers, I'm ready to see what the numbers are because they were through the roof during the show. And we, of course, want to thank our friends at Dead Soxy. Check them out at deadsoxy.com. And Chris, you want to throw out the game day chair again real quick and tell everybody just a little bit about that?
Yeah, and then deadsoxy.com, code HOLIDAYPRO, 35% off. Game day chair, 803-926-1493 or affordablemedicalusa.com. If you're listening on the pod, thank you very much. And check out the description in the pod. You can see the link to the game day chair. If you're on YouTube, like we hope you are as well, watching live, it is also in the YouTube description. The best recliner with a variety of positions that you've ever sat in. Give it a try. Game day chair from Affordable Medical USA.
No doubt. All right, y'all. We honestly, truly, completely appreciate it. It's been awesome. The number is still as high as I think it's ever been before, but we got to get out of here. So hold your thoughts. We'll go heavy on questions later in the week. Come check us out, GamecockCentral.com. We're always on there. 30-day free trial, code GCPOD, put it in the promo field, or just throw Gamecocks in the promo field. You get 50% off your first year of a premium subscription. Guys, girls, we appreciate it. For Chris, I'm Wes.